message with the key.
Okay.
No matter if it's a parent, a sibling, or a friend, talking about loss with kids can be a tricky subject.
Joining us now is author of Are You With Me?, Corey Richens. And Corey, I want to start with your story. What happened in your personal life?
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. He was 39. It completely took us all by shock. We have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6.
And it's only been a year. How did you go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
You know, I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, you know, dealing with anything. But I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night.
I was reading it, and I remember I just was in tears, and I thought, like, this is perfect for your family. It just seemed perfect. And so I was just baffled at how she even had the time to do that.
And it's, you know, explaining to my kids just because he's not present here with us, that doesn't mean his presence isn't here with us, and he's doing these things with us.
Viewers at home, what they saw in that interview was this bereaved young woman who tragically lost her husband.
Like, Dad is still here, it's just in a different way.
But this would be just the beginning of the story, and boy, was there a lot more coming their way.
And we're clear. All right, good job, everyone. Let's get ready for headlines.
911, what's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold. Okay, tell me exactly what happened. I don't know. I was sleeping. I was sleeping with my kids. Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on?
It's a little after 3 in the morning, and Corey Richens calls 911 saying her husband Eric is not breathing and is cold to the touch.
Okay, can you do CPR? No, I don't know how. You don't know? I'm gonna tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR? Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count out loud so I can hear you. I'm counting with you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Officers are dispatched to the scene. Paramedics and firefighters are already there when they arrive.
In those first few moments of the police body-worn camera, you are watching this life or death moment unfold. Law enforcement is trying to make sense of it all. Inside the bedroom, you can see law enforcement trying to help Eric Richens. He is on his back on the ground. He has no pulse. He's not breathing. And they're using a CPR machine, so you can hear this sort of rhythmic sound.
Okay. What's your first name? Yeah, let me talk to you out here for a second. Let them do their work in there. So what happened today?
He was just fine. We were fine.
When you say we were fine, what time did you see him when he was alert?
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work.
Hours earlier, they were celebrating a big financial win for her real estate business.
She mentions they've had a cocktail before bed. She mentions that her son has night terrors and that she'd been asleep with him.
When I sleep with my kids, I'll wake up and I go back in my own bed.
Mm-hmm. Where are your children now?
One's asleep in that room, 2 are awake with their ear to the door. I go out, I'm gonna go out, please don't take them out.
Okay.
At one point, the officer asked if she would like to call anybody, and she mentioned she wants to call her mom.
Here, you can use my phone.
I got a call. It was Corey. Said, Mom, you need to come up here.
Something's wrong with Eric. The police have girls are here. I don't know what's happening.
I said, something's happened. She said, Eric.
Does he have any medical conditions or anything like that?
He has Lyme's disease.
Lyme's disease?
But nothing major.
So they're asking questions like, does he have any, health ailments?
So no heart problems or anything like that?
So while she's talking to the officers, she says that sometimes he takes a gummy to sleep, but she also tells them she's not sure whether he took one that night.
It's like a gummy, as in like a THC gummy? Okay. Does he have any history of illicit drug use or anything in the past year? No, never.
As I pull in the driveway, 3 cops come running at me, asking who I am. I went running through the house to get to Corey, and it was just devastating. She was in total shock. I had no idea, not only as a mother, what to do for her, but as a person, how to help a person in shock.
Oh my God.
I went and talked to the boys, and they're just confused. They're not crying because they don't know what's going on. They just know a lot of cops are there.
Corey Richens' mother, Lisa Darden, says that he got weekly allergy shots, and maybe that has something to do with his medical condition.
He didn't look good last night.
He looked pale last night, and I asked if you were okay, and he said yeah, but he was saying his chest was hurting.
I had seen him that day, and I said, oh my God, what is wrong with you? You look horrible.
For a moment, the deputy walks away from Corey Richens, and you can see a conversation between him, another officer, and an EMT.
I wonder if he had an aneurysm or something with all the blood. There's a lot of blood for some unknown reason. A little bit coming out as soon as we start doing compressions when the blood came out. So,
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
The amount of blood was sort of surprising to the paramedic, and this leads to the initial hypothesis of an aneurysm.
My husband's active. He didn't just die in his sleep. This is insane.
Eric was very athletic. You would never expect an aneurysm, but that's what they're telling us. They don't know, they're saying an aneurysm, and you just can't believe he's gone.
In the body cam footage, you actually hear Eric's sister, Katie, before you see her. She's moaning and she's screaming out, and it's the raw guttural pain that you hear when you've just learned that someone you love has died.
In the video, you see Katie take Corey and Eric's young boys upstairs and away from the turmoil.
But at one point, Katie even can hardly breathe.
It's natural, okay? Just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Okay. I gotta breathe. Oh my God, I gotta breathe. I just talked to him like a couple hours ago.
At 3:58 a.m., Eric Richens is officially declared dead, but it's also noted that he appears to have been dead for quite some time before they arrived at the residence.
The next thing is our detective and our medical examiners are going to respond to the location. They're going to do their investigation and document everything. And then most likely, because of his age, his health and everything else, most likely.
The county coroner's office has an obligation, a legal requirement really, to investigate forensically any unexpected death. Whenever you have a young man like this who dies mysteriously, you can bet they're going to do an autopsy.
This is the night of a tragic end, but the beginning of a mystery that will take years to unravel.
The night that Eric died, Corey says that they were celebrating. They were celebrating what was going to be her most ambitious purchase yet for her real estate business. A distressed mansion in Midway, Utah that she hoped to buy for millions, flip it, and sell it for millions more.
She was so excited about it and the possibilities for it.
This was a very big moment for Corey Richens. Corey grew up working for her aunt's cleaning company, cleaning the toilets of the rich people who lived in mansions in Park City. Corey would dream that one day she would be the one that owned the mansions and not the one cleaning the toilets. This was Corey's moment to say, look, I did it. I made something of myself, and now I'm on the other side. Corey grew up in a family that moved a lot.
My parents worked construction, so we would move every 2-3 months growing up. We weren't poor by any stretch, but we weren't wealthy by any stretch either. My parents did what they had to do to get by.
When she got to junior high, her family really made a home in Heber City, Utah. It's also part of Summit County. It's a beautiful mountain town. And there she finds a really close group of girlfriends.
We just had a really good core group of friends. And I mean, the text we'd get every weekend was, hey, where's the party at? And then we also played sports. And then we were in the same classes together. And we just kind of evolved from there.
She's on the cheer team. In high school, she's playing tennis. And she seems to have really found a home and belonging.
She was a tough cookie. Anybody said anything wrong about us, you could, kind of always count on Corey to handle it.
Corey and Eric met when Corey was working at a Home Depot.
Home Depot paid the best. It was brand new, it was in Park City, and it paid really well for cashiers.
He was coming into the Home Depot a lot because of his stonemasonry business, and they hit it off and started talking, and people remember, sparks flying and instant chemistry.
He was significantly older than her.
She just thought the world of Eric. Eric was it.
Eric grew up in Bountiful, Utah. Went to high school at Woods Cross. The Richens owned a cattle ranch in Summit County. And he grew up working on this ranch. His sisters rode horses, they had animals, they were outdoorsmen.
Eric was one of 3 children with 2 sisters, Amy and Katie, and he was very close to his mother who had died in 2018.
Eric grew up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church. His dad shares that it was one of the most important things that they wanted to instill in their children was faith and religion. So much so that Eric went on a 2-year mission for the church to Mexico City and then came back and started his stonemasonry business.
Eric was a very dynamic individual.
He worked hard, but he also played hard. He had ATVs, he camped, he explored.
Eric was a big-time hunter, go to Africa, big trophy hunting stuff.
They began dating. Corey became pregnant with their first child, and they married soon after.
The marriage is a backyard ceremony. Family and friends gather. Corey is about to walk down the aisle, and Eric's mother present her with a prenup. And the prenup says that his stonemasonry business belongs to him, and that the only way that she would benefit from that business would be if he were to die while they are married.
Corey was pretty distraught over it, but ultimately she signed it. She loved Eric, she wanted to marry Eric, so she went along to get along, I guess.
I don't think it's a secret that Eric's family, or at least parts of Eric's family, didn't approve of Corey.
It was a rough start at the beginning, and once that got passed, I mean, they had a good wedding.
Corey and Eric ended up having 3 boys in 4 years.
She planned that. She was a planner, and that was her plan. Corey was everything you'd probably want as a mom.
She loved her boys. Her boys are her world. And when she wasn't working, she was with her kids.
From Boy Scout leader to soccer to you name it, she's involved in everything.
Eric really, he was a dedicated dad.
He was a soccer coach for the boys.
My last memory of Eric was me in their living room playing soccer with his son, you know, and Eric was sitting in his chair, like sitting back like this, giggling, while his son kicked my ass in soccer, you know, and he was really proud of it.
Eric's business has become incredibly successful. It's $1 million business, C&E Masonry.
And they have a very affluent life. They're taking trips together.
My first cruise was with them.
They would go out to fancy restaurants. Yeah, they had money to spend.
At the beginning of all, Corey stayed home with the children, but at some point, Corey wanted more, and she started a real estate business.
In 2019, Corey starts K. Richens Realty, which is her home flipping business. That first year, Corey buys and resells a property to a family that says they found their dream home.
Guess who's homeowners? Me, and him, and me, and him, and me. We just bought a house!
Just 2 years later, Corey is managing 15 renovation projects.
Corey's making a very good living.
It's expanding quickly. She's buying a lot of properties, and by all accounts, it is very successful. This looks like the all-American perfect family. A beautiful home, a beautiful family, beautiful children, and 2 thriving businesses.
What's your first name? Yeah, let me talk to you.
Nobody ever thought Eric was gonna die.
Of course, Eric Richens, a dedicated father, has provided for his children. But this grieving widow is about to discover her future won't be quite what she thought.
Eric's sister, Amy, says this home isn't yours.
They're screaming back and forth. I stepped in between the two of them.
I learned the news about Eric passing on March 4th through a phone call. Why? What happened? What could have caused it? It was just surreal.
And just the day before, Corey says that she and Eric were toasting the purchase of her dream property, a $2.9 million mansion. And just hours later, Eric would be dead.
Eric is beloved in the community, and many people come and gather at the family home to sort of celebrate his life.
There were just constant people coming in and out of the house, paying their condolences. We were just, you know, reminiscing about Eric.
We were all just there to support Corey, keep the boys occupied, keep their minds sort of off of, you know, what happened.
We were literally talking about Eric the entire night and reason, dancing and listening to his favorite songs. One of our friends is shotgunning a beer.
Richard?
Richard?
Richard, yep.
And it's not the way everybody else may celebrate, but that's how we did it, because that's what Eric would have done with us.
At one point, you know, they're playing music, and Cody Johnson's Till You Can't comes on, and this is Eric's favorite song.
I mean, it's an incredible song with a very obvious meaning. Live until you can't, you know, and to know that we just lost somebody so suddenly, it put things in perspective.
Yeah, you got a chance, take it.
Corey's dancing with her 3 sons, and Eric's sister Amy films the dance.
And there was this light that kind of projected around them, and she's like, I swear Eric's dancing with them right now. Like, it was special.
And it's this real moment of sort of solidarity between the 2 families.
But that solidarity appears to be short-lived.
The morning after that gathering, there is a dispute, an argument between Corey and Eric's sister, Amy. Corey realizes that Eric's will is in a safe.
She seemed a little adamant about getting that will, and she was pretty positive that it was in the safe, but she didn't know what the combination was.
Eric Richens' sister, Amy, is at the house, and a locksmith shows up to access the safe.
You just hear like this blood-curdling scream as I ran out into the garage. and Amy had seen a sign on a truck that said locksmith or something. She flipped out and told Corey, you know, you're not supposed to be getting into the safe.
And then Amy drops a bomb. She tells Corey that Eric had secretly set up his trust and will, and Corey was largely cut out.
They're screaming back and forth. I stepped in between the two of them. Eventually, the police showed up.
In the midst of all of this, Corey wants to fact check what's going on, and they call the estate planner. So the estate planner ends up confirming to Corey that right around 2020, Eric had created an estate and that his sister, Katie, was in charge of that and the executor.
He makes his sons the beneficiary of the trust. He puts the house in the trust.
And that's when those words of, "it's not your home," came out. And Corey's like, "it is my house. I've lived here for 10 years. You know, what are you talking about?"
Amy told authorities that Corey punched her in the face and the neck. Corey is then arrested and charged with assault.
She ends up pleading no contest, but she is found guilty of assault.
To think this is happening 2 days after Eric's death, and then these two families have to see each other again at Eric's funeral?
The funeral itself, I think, went off very well, but you could already see the animosity between the two families. It's contentious.
Oh, the funeral was incredibly uncomfortable. Corey stood in one, and then his family stood in like another area. Yeah, it was a very obvious divide immediately, and they wouldn't talk to each other.
There really wasn't much reference to Corey. There wasn't a lot of love going on.
It was over-the-top, lavish casket. It was like a horse and buggy. It was grand. It was very country. It was just the most uncomfortable funeral I've ever been at. His 40th birthday was just a couple weeks after the funeral. Like, his clothes had already been taken down, and she wasn't wearing her wedding ring, and I thought that was a little odd. I mean, it wasn't even a month.
As the months passed, Corey filed a civil lawsuit against Eric's sister, Katie, disputing the trust.
And Corey seems to continue to adjust to life as a single mother and a businesswoman.
Corey talks a lot about how important routine is to getting through the process of grief. And so, you know, usually at nighttime, this is when you read to your children, and she was saying that they looked for something to read that would answer some of these questions, and she found nothing.
She said, "I have looked everywhere, and I can't find a book on grieving for children." She said, "I wonder if I could write one."
Corey Richins self-published a book called Are You With Me?
The first part of the book is actually written from the child's perspective, the little boy who's wondering if his dad is with him.
Corey actually used a ghostwriter in order to create this book.
Are you at my soccer game when I scored that goal for you? I looked for you in the crowd, but you weren't there. Did you see it?
And then later on in the book, it switches to the deceased father's perspective, and he sort of starts saying, "Yes, I am with you."
I am with you when you scored that goal for me. You couldn't hear me cheer for you, but I yelled and clapped as loud as I could, just like always.
Corey dedicates the book to my amazing husband and a wonderful father. And then there is a drawing of the family of 5. You see Corey and Eric together with their 3 children and the dog.
I will forever love you, my sweet baby, until we see each other again. Yes, I am with you.
In March 2023, Corey Richins goes on these local radio and TV stations talking about the book.
Start your move 2.
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
We got an email, wrote into the station. It was Corey saying that she had just written what she believed to be was the first book for kids about coping with grief, and that she would love the chance to share that on Good Things Utah.
My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
And to make sense and process, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly.
What a shock this must be for this poor woman. My heart went out to her.
I'm new to all of this, so kind of doing research and reading books and things to try and understand, not only how to grieve as a widow, as a wife, but also, you know, with my kids, how to help them understand what just happened.
But the big shock happened a couple of days later when we get an anonymous email. And there's just one line, and it's in all capital letters with many exclamation marks at the end, and it says, "You know she killed her husband."
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
While Corey has moved on with her life and is promoting her children's book about coping with grief, authorities have been digging into the circumstances surrounding Eric's death.
Were you first on scene?
We were second.
And there was blood before they
A little bit coming out as soon as we start doing compressions.
Originally, it was one of the EMTs on scene who suggests that maybe Eric had an aneurysm.
I don't know if he had an aneurysm or something with all the blood.
And I think that made a lot of sense to the family on scene right then, because what else would it be that would make a healthy 39-year-old man all of a sudden stop breathing in the middle of the night?
So law enforcement says that there will be an autopsy. They think it might have been an aneurysm, but they don't know.
For the people that knew Eric, the autopsy was absolutely shocking.
The initial autopsy report comes back, and it's drug intoxication, fentanyl, as the cause of death.
5 times the amount of fentanyl that could kill anyone.
Eric did not do drugs, not to my understanding, you know, and Corey was saying the same thing, so it was just baffling.
They also found that it was not medical grade fentanyl. So this is nothing that was prescribed by a doctor.
This would have been, you know, drugs off the street, the type of drugs that you would procure on a corner and don't necessarily know the origins of.
The autopsy report jumpstarts a criminal investigation because this is not a natural death. This is either an accidental overdose or someone killed Eric.
Now police officers realize they have to find the origin of the drug.
Police get a search warrant to search the Richens' home for illegal drugs.
Investigators go in, they seize Corey's electronics, Eric's electronics, and they search the house for anything that could possibly have traces of fentanyl.
But they don't find any fentanyl.
During this search, Corey is stopped by then lead detective Jamie Woody, and at that moment, Corey says what everybody else is saying, that Eric doesn't do drugs, that she's shocked by the cause of death.
Corey Richens talks to the chief medical examiner and essentially has a bunch of questions, and she goes down a list of the various items that were found in the stomach contents.
The third one, the acetyl, I don't know how you say that.
Acetylfentanyl.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just a variant of fentanyl that is usually only present in the setting of illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
Illicit manufactured, like a pharmacy?
No, like fentanyl that's manufactured by drug cartels as opposed to by pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, good Lord.
It's pretty clear she's kind of reading from the report and asking individual questions about each part.
I was just trying to figure out, you know, if we found out anything new.
Definitely, death from fentanyl intoxication, and we still don't know how he got it into him.
Yeah, and I mean, is that anything you could ever find out?
When the toxicology report comes back, Eric's family comes forward to law enforcement and says, well, we have some concerns about the toxicology report. Eric didn't do drugs.
The Richens family was immediately suspicious that Corey had a role in Eric's death.
According to Eric's family, while it seemed like Corey and Eric were flying high, when he died, it was a very different reality.
Eric discovered actually in 2020 that Corey had taken out a loan to help her business and did so without telling him.
Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against the home, which Eric solely owned and had no idea about.
That made them all start to be very concerned with Corey's financial situation, and that is actually what caused him to change the trust, because he wanted to make sure his children were taken care of.
The family says that when Eric finds out, he visits a divorce attorney. I think it's like, how can you deceive your spouse like that? When you own a home, the idea that you're going to take out a line of credit, that they're never gonna realize this, and you're somehow gonna go out and spend $250,000 and they're just never gonna get that that's what was going on behind the scenes, it's pretty shocking.
They end up going to counseling and they do not separate. But there is this idea, she's lied about their finances. Even if there's the facade of things being good within the marriage, there's still a real permanent rift between the couple, and the trust has been broken there.
But as it turns out, allegations of financial crimes are not the only evidence investigators are uncovering.
A year after Eric's death, Corey's finances are not looking good at all. She thought she was going to be getting an inheritance, and now the weight of her debt is bearing down on her.
She's in a lot of trouble here. She owes a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars.
It was hard for her that year, financially and emotionally. Her kids, were crying at night because their dad is gone. And she has Eric's family who are blaming her for his death.
Emotionally, she kind of seemed like she's hanging on by a thread. Corey was also trying to run this business that she was doing, and she just seemed really stressed out.
One of Corey's biggest financial burdens was this mansion she had purchased.
A luxurious piece of property on the most beautiful land.
She buys it for close to $3 million. But at this point, the mansion is far from finished.
Corey Richens commissioned this YouTube video of the house construction. It even included a virtual view of the planned luxe amenities.
Corey had talked about turning the Midway Mansion into an event space where people could have weddings. It needed a lot of work, estimated to be a couple million.
Corey is allegedly making all of this work through hard money loans. And these are loans that are short term, they cost more, they tend to be riskier.
But Corey didn't have money from Eric's estate to help, and eventually lost the mansion to foreclosure.
The fallout from Corey's financial strain allegedly ends up harming one of her best friends, a woman named Chelsea Barney.
Corey's been helping her best friend buy a home, her first home. So she says, look, I'll get the loan, you'll sign the deed, the home will be yours, and you can pay the mortgage each month. She was a waitress and a manager at a restaurant, and she had saved all of her tip money for years.
She gave Corey $45,000 as a down payment.
She was always on time with her payment. And so when all of a sudden she was getting notices that her home might be in trouble, she called and asked for a copy of the deed.
Essentially, Chelsea had found out that the deed was never properly filed with the county.
She never was the owner of the home.
The house is foreclosed on, Chelsea and her family are evicted, and to add insult to injury, all this money she saved up to buy this home, it's gone.
And there's another family who also say their dealings with Corey did not end well.
We just bought a house!
Taryn and Alec Wright buy this home for their family. It's been remodeled, there's a view of the mountains, it has a great yard.
But once they were in that home, they discovered a major problem.
They claim they find mold in the walls, and they say there was water coming in and that everyone in the family got sick. Nosebleeds, asthma, really unpleasant stuff.
Corey denied that she had any knowledge of any problems with the home, and that the home had been inspected prior to their closing on it.
The Wrights filed a lawsuit and told 2020 they lost their house to foreclosure, saying they've been financially ruined by the cost of a long-term temporary rental while still paying for that home.
Meanwhile, there are people who are starting to say out loud what only a few knew, that Eric had gotten ill in the past and he suspected Corey was behind it.
Eric and Corey were on a trip to Greece in 2019.
They were out having dinner one night and everyone was ordering drinks. Eric had just recently got Lyme's disease from a hunting trip. He's taking medication for it. On that medication, you're not allowed to have alcohol. It will make you very, very sick. Eric ordered a virgin drink. When they brought it over, he tasted it and said that he thought that there was alcohol in it. He started not feeling well and they ran up to the hotel room.
He called his sister Katie and told her that he thought that Corey had tried to poison him.
I don't believe Eric said that. I don't believe he ever said that. They were in a restaurant when he got sick, so the only one serving him was a waitress.
Then actually on Valentine's Day of 2022, so only weeks before his death, Corey had ordered a sandwich from a local diner.
The server answered the phone and a to-go order was placed, a Bald Mountain Bagel sandwich, which is just a toasted bagel with bacon, egg, and cheese, avocado, and sliced tomato. And 12 minutes later, Corey came in and picked it up and paid for it.
When she left the sandwich for him, she left a note, basically just saying, "Happy Valentine's Day, I love you."
After just a single bite, Eric seemed to believe he was having an allergic reaction. He used his son's EpiPen, took some Benadryl, and went to sleep. And when he woke up, he texted friends, "You almost lost me this time. I think she might have poisoned me."
And police are about to learn just where that poison could be coming from.
Speed.
Corey came to me about a year after she said her husband had died. All she had said was that he passed away and she was ready for some new family photos. So she wanted to get her hair done to look cute in the pictures with her sons. I was really impressed with how she was handling that situation with her little boys and how much she was doing with her life. Corey spent 5 or 6 hours in my chair. We did a full color on her and then we did her extension install after that. I think she ended up spending around $2,900.
It's been a year since Eric Richens' death, and Corey is moving on with life. But Eric's family, however, is frustrated. They say they're not seeing progress in the investigation, and they're dealing with the back and forth lawsuits over the estate. So they decide to hire a private investigator.
This PI pulls phone records, looks at thousands of text messages, pulls electronics, gets cell phone data.
So when the private investigator gets into these phone records, he discovers that there are essentially 3 people that Corey is communicating with all the time. One is Eric, the other is her mother, and the third person is a woman named Carmen Lauber.
This is between the months right before and right after Eric Richens dies. So why is Corey talking to Carmen Lauber so much?
Carmen worked for my sister cleaning houses and cleaning the fix and flips. And Corey would call her and say, "Hey, I need you to go to this address, clean this house."
This woman has a checkered past, including a whole bunch of drug stuff.
With the information that the private investigators gathered, he's forwarding all of that to the Summit County Sheriff's Office.
A new lead detective is put on the case, Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, and his theory is to start over, start fresh.
Carmen is in a court-ordered drug program, and Detective O'Driscoll takes the opportunity to search her trash. He finds drug paraphernalia, and that's a violation. Now he's got probable cause to search her home. Not only do they find enough evidence to bring drug charges, they find a gun, and she's not allowed to have one since she's a convicted felon. And they notice something that stops them in their tracks. They're looking at a wall full of inspirational sayings that she's posted, and they see, taped to a mirror, a copy of Eric's obituary.
At this point, they've really zeroed in on Corey as being, the prime suspect to Eric's passing, and they need somebody to kind of connect those dots. Without Carmen, police really didn't have much of a case.
So can Carmen tell them if Corey had any connection to the fentanyl?
Write down something as far as you remember it right now, and then we can work on the details as we continue to talk about it, as we check phone records, as we, do all our part, our side to corroborate what you're saying, right?
Hey, now, everything I just told you, I probably wouldn't remember what order I told you in.
It's okay, and that's fine, because you know what? We want to make sure we get the right story. And so the way you're remembering it is, is all you can give us. You can't make something up that you don't remember, right?
Right.
She tells police that not only has Corey asked her to get fentanyl, but she did so on 2 separate occasions, and she even said things like, the first batch wasn't strong enough.
The thought was insinuated that she wanted you to get something that somebody could die from.
I know one thing, that when we got one, it wasn't dark enough. I don't even know how fentanyl really goes.
Carmen explained she got one set of drugs sometime in February, and then was asked to get stronger stuff, and then got another dose of drugs a second time around.
So Carmen's facing prosecution and years of prison time.
The only exception to that, and the only thing that they're willing to kind of help you out with, is if you can help us out with this.
And by so, he means like, give us the details that will ensure Corey gets convicted of murder.
Oh my God.
This is a serious case, Carmen. I'm not
that
trying
is way more of my...
I know.
You got Carmen, who's looking at 25 years to life for drug charges and gun charges. She's going to tell the cops whatever they want to hear. And they're making a plea deal.
The goal is to convict Corey for an aggravated murder. These parallel drug investigations, those aren't a priority.
Carmen says her dealer was Robert Crozier. He's already in custody for other drug crimes, and he's also detoxing. He says that he and Carmen would meet at a gas station where he would sell her the drugs. Carmen says she would hide the drugs at one of the houses Corey was trying to flip. Crozier says it wasn't a regular thing.
Yeah, I met her just 2 times. I think I talked to her a couple more times after, but just to see, you know what I mean? Hey, because somebody's spending, you know what I mean? $500-600
Is that what 30 would run about $500 or $600?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
It's not just the drug sales themselves, it's the timing.
There were 30 text messages exchanged between Carmen and Corey on Valentine's Day 2022, the day of that infamous sandwich.
And the other date is February 26, which is right before Eric's death.
Now law enforcement has the drug link through Carmen, and they have the financial information.
Corey Richens was in massive debt. She was trying to funnel money back into her own real estate and house flipping business.
You add this all up, and it's finally enough for police to make their move.
A woman who wrote a children's book about grief after the death of her husband now faces charges for his murder.
Corey Richens is charged with 1 count of aggravated murder and 3 counts of possession of narcotics with intention to distribute.
I woke up in the morning to headlines of Utah mom and children's grief book author arrested and charged with murder.
It was shocking. It was unbelievable.
I just couldn't fathom it. Like, not Corey. Why her? Like, it just became this huge story because she wrote that children's book.
They are trying to ruin and convict an innocent mother.
The simplest answer is often the correct one. It was most likely an accidental overdose.
I will take it to my grave that Corey did not do this. I too believe it's an accidental overdose.
For Corey Richens, she's either victim or killer. There is nothing in between. Is she a widow who had lost her husband and the father of her children tragically, or did she plan this all out to get from under some massive debt?
In my experience, money and love are 2 of the most powerful motivators for a murder. Now, police know about the money, and there may be a romantic angle as well. If Corey wasn't with Eric on Valentine's Day, and she wasn't, who was she with?
My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
And to make sense and process, I'm sure.
Right now, we have the arrest of a Utah mom who wrote a children's book about grief after her husband's death. She has now been charged with killing him.
I'm new to all of this as a widow, as a wife, but also, you know, with my kids.
I'm thinking she's just powering through. She's trying her best, maybe not to cry, maybe not to get too emotional. Toxicology report found 5 times a lethal dosage of fentanyl in his system.
This last page, particularly poignant. I will forever love you, my sweet baby, until we see each other again. Yes, I am with you.
Written as though it's in the father's words for their boys. You are an amazing woman, and we thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this and touching the lives of others.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. So,
thank you, Corey.
guys.
Thank you. All right, GTU is back with more.
State prosecutors say they do have enough evidence against Corey Richens to proceed with a trial.
The imminent charge of murder, allegedly at this point, but still, naturally, you're thinking, can I believe what she said?
On May 8th, 2023, Corey is arrested and charged with the aggravated murder of her husband, as well as several counts of possession of illicit drugs with the intent to distribute.
Finding that out was such a shock. I mean, talking about this now, it still blows my mind.
This could all very well be the perfect crime. A storybook ending where she thought she couldn't get caught.
It's a story that resonates because it's sort of this idea that she is two very different people, a Jekyll and Hyde situation. She was so empathetic at first glance, and then the story becomes much more sinister.
In a June 2023 hearing where Corey's gonna find out if she makes bail or not, she appears in street clothes, but she is in shackles. And she has this look of confidence on her face, almost as if she thinks this is still going to go her way.
Prosecutors call 3 witnesses to testify as to why Corey Richens should not be released pending prosecution.
And the defendant came to the door and wrote a check from her business for $1,300 for the purchase of the fentanyl.
The initial bail hearing had a forensic accountant going into her finances. It went over the phone records and some of her searches on her phone after her husband's death.
During the bail hearing, the cell phone expert presented evidence that prosecutors said was a sign of consciousness of guilt.
Consciousness of guilt can be virtually anything that a criminal defendant does that is consistent with them understanding that they're guilty. Some of the more interesting internet searches included luxury prisons for the rich in America, can cops uncover deleted messages, iPhone, if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as, and finally, what is a lethal dose of fentanyl?
Those internet searches did not come until after Corey had been given a search warrant that was executed on her home. That search warrant laid out that they believed that Eric had died from a lethal dose of fentanyl, that she had murdered him with it. And so, you know, to now say, well, she searched it, so it's the consciousness of guilt, I think it's human nature. Someone hands you something and says, hey, we think you poisoned them with fentanyl, and you're like, I don't even know what a lethal dose of fentanyl is. What do? We Google search.
Prosecutors argue that the motivation behind Eric Richens' death is that Corey Richens was in massive debt.
Being bad with money does not make you a murderer.
The defense makes the argument that the prosecution has no case because they have no way of showing how the drugs ultimately got into Eric's system.
They went through the home and they found absolutely no forensic evidence to substantiate their allegation that she must have given Eric fentanyl in this drink.
But perhaps the most compelling argument was made by Eric's sister, Amy Richens, during her victim's impact statement.
Eric was a family man who always strove to be the absolute best father and husband. I go through the terrible sequence of events. I wonder when he realized he was in mortal danger. This last year has been a living hell for our family. We have watched as Corey has paraded around portraying herself as a grieving widow and victim while trying to profit from the death of my brother.
But the circumstances of this case weigh soundly against granting pretrial release of any kind.
Since Corey was arrested, she's been held in the Summit County Jail. Corey not only has been separated from her children, at this point she lost custody of her children.
The state of Utah takes her kids away, even though she's presumed innocent, because Utah has a law that allows the court to do that when one spouse is suspected of causing the death of the other spouse.
And it's while she's in jail that authorities make what appears to be a stunning discovery.
Deputies did what's called tossing her cell, where they go in, they essentially perform a search, and they found a letter that the prosecution believed to be very, very significant in the case.
Since her arrest, Corey Richens, the aspiring writer, is being held in Utah Summit County Jail, and she's at it again.
During a sweep of Corey's cell, an officer uncovers a 4-page letter. At the top of the first page, it says, "Walk the dog," with an exclamation point. And prosecutors argue that this letter is a message for Corey's mother to relay to her brother Ronnie what he needs to say to help get her off.
It reads in part, "Here's what I'm thinking, but you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico from the workers at the ranch. Reword this however he needs to make the point with Mexico and drugs."
Prosecutors say this is evidence of witness tampering, of influencing a person's testimony that could potentially take the stand in her case, and providing a story that is alternative to how Eric had gone to Mexico and possibly obtained drugs while there.
Of course, that's hugely significant from the perspective of detectives and the prosecution.
I mean, she just explained to me that it was some fairy tale book that was loosely based on what's going on, but there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that makes it very obvious that it's not true.
Corey has always maintained that the Walk the Dog letter was part of a greater manuscript. Not only was it attorney-client communication, it was also attorney work product. Is this damaging? Does she admit that she committed murder in it? Absolutely not.
So the question becomes whether a jury will see this as, Corey insists, as a fictional manuscript, or further evidence of her guilt.
First with the death of her husband and this children's book, Are You With Me? And now with this 4-page letter, you see Corey writing herself into the plot. It is Corey's own written word that prosecutors keep coming back to as evidence that she is, in fact, at the center of this.
The Camas mom, accused of killing her husband and then writing a children's book about grief, is facing more criminal charges.
So in March 2024, the prosecution amended their complaint to include an allegation of attempted murder.
This is the attempted murder charge for the poisoned Valentine's Day sandwich that Eric ate just weeks before his death.
Eric supposedly saying that he thinks his wife is trying to poison him it's absolutely absurd.
And the heat is about to be turned up even higher on Corey. With all the media coverage on her case, someone was watching. And that someone reached out to Eric Richens' family, wanting to clear a guilty conscience.
That someone is 41-year-old Josh Grossman, who Corey had hired as a handyman at a home that she was renovating.
Authorities learned that Grossman and Corey had been carrying on a years-long affair. According to investigators, the lovers texted almost daily.
I want you today, every day, not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day. When I wake up, I do want a future together.
So in addition to the financial motive here, we also have a totally separate motive, and that is she's having an affair where she's repeatedly communicating with this man, talking about how much she wants to be with him and how much she loves him.
Among the frequent text exchanges, in February of 2022, Corey wrote, "If he could just go away and you could just be here, life would be so perfect. I love you."
You know, I'll acknowledge the timing of the texts are not ideal. You know, is this evidence of murder? No. But is it one of those things that may weigh in the back of a juror's mind when they're thinking about how to weigh all this other evidence? I think that absolutely becomes the case.
We're following breaking news out of Summit County for you. The judge granted a request from the defense team to withdraw from her case.
Suddenly, defense attorney Sky Lazaro withdraws from the case, citing a conflict of interest involving her law firm.
And this preliminary hearing is a critical right that every single...
Replacing Lazaro is public defender Kathy Nestor and co-counsel Wendy Lewis. Together, the defense attorneys have more than 30 years of experience.
Whenever legal counsel changes in a case, this will heavily stall any sort of outcome because now a new attorney has to come on, build a rapport with Corey, and learn the case inside out.
In May 2024, just days after her new lawyers are appointed, Corey makes her first public statement in an audio recording released to ABC News.
The world has yet to hear who I really am, what I've really done, or what I really didn't do. What I've really done is protect Eric at all costs. What I really didn't do is murder my husband. I could not and would not ever do that to Eric, or anyone for that matter. I'm asking the world to give me a chance.
And Corey Richins will have that chance in court. While the narcotics charges were dropped, she has pleaded not guilty to the remaining charges, including 2 counts of insurance fraud. One of those charges alleges that Corey took out a life insurance policy on Eric without his knowledge.
When you throw in a financial motive, that's big, that's huge. That she needed Eric Richins dead, that's financial motive is massive. It's big. But then you throw in an affair, you throw in a love story. Now you're talking multiple motives.
The state first has to prove that he was murdered. You know, that's step one. And they've got to be able, if I'm the jury, I mean, I want to know how. You know, you can't just say he died, she was there, it must have been her, you know, because she had an affair. They're going to have a hard time connecting those dots.
All eyes on Utah this morning as the Corey Richins murder trial begins.
The murder trial of Corey Richins is now underway.
Nearly 3 years after her arrest, Corey Richins is in court right now for day 1 of that trial.
We'll be inside of that courtroom all week, bringing you the latest.
I knew that this trial would be big. I didn't know it was going to be this big.
This story, just in a quiet community that doesn't have things like this happening, is obviously a pretty big deal.
This is a small courthouse, sort of off the beaten path in the beautiful mountains of Utah, near Park City, Utah.
Most people expect that there will be 12 people on a jury, but in this case, there were 8 jury members, 6 men, 2 women.
My name is Laura, and I was the jury foreperson in the Corey Richins murder trial. Before being selected as a juror, I had heard or read just a couple headlines, but I never really looked at stories. I really knew nothing about the case.
Corey looks nervous. She's worried. She doesn't have that same confidence she did a few years ago.
While the situation appears tough for Corey, she still has her supporters.
I'll be in the courtroom right there with her family, supporting her every second, every minute, every day, as long as it takes. She will beat this. Mark my words.
All right, we'll now proceed with opening statements.
The prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, is very direct. He gets right to business.
In opening statements, the prosecutor had a laundry list of motives as to why Corey would have killed her husband.
The evidence will prove that on the day that Eric died, Corey Richens owed over $4.5 million to over 20 different lenders, that Corey Richens was chronically unhappy in her marriage, that Corey Richens murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life.
On the defense side, they start with someone else's voice, Corey's voice, the 911 call she made the night Eric died.
911, what's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold. And he's not breathing?
Those were the sounds of a wife becoming a widow.
The defense urged the jurors to focus on the 6 hours leading up to Eric's death and not 6 years prior.
So those 6 hours, somewhere in that time, Eric Richens died. Somewhere in that time, he ingested a fatal dose of fentanyl. What you're never going to hear is how that fentanyl got inside of him, because there is zero evidence of that.
The witnesses that the state started with were powerful.
Your Honor, the state calls Katie Richens Benson.
They called Eric's sister, Katie, to the stand.
That you received a phone call about Eric.
Yes, it was early in the morning.
Who called you?
My dad did.
What did he say?
It's not easy. He was screaming and crying and said, Eric's not breathing, Eric's not breathing. Sorry, guys. This was the worst day of my life. I'm sorry.
The state needs to convince the jury that Corey purchased that lethal dose of fentanyl with the intention to kill.
When Carmen takes the stand, all eyes are on her. She makes or breaks this case for the state.
Please proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Remember, Carmen Lauber was facing a lot of trouble with the law, but now she's testifying with immunity. She made a deal with prosecutors if she tells the truth about how Corey Richens purchased fentanyl from her.
She's pretty much getting a out-of-jail-free pass for her testimony.
She comes clean. The first part of her testimony is essentially Carmen Lauber laying out all of her sins for the entire world.
Have you ever sold drugs?
Yes.
Do you have a criminal history involving drugs?
Yes.
Carmen became very emotional on the stand, and yes, she was given a deal for her testimony, but if you believe her, she insists that isn't the only reason that she's doing this. She says she's trying to right a wrong for her role in all of this.
Did you ask Corey Richens about Eric's death?
Yes, I did.
What did you ask her?
I said, please tell me these pills were not for him. When they had mentioned that it was from an overdose, that hit hard. Only for the fact that if that's what happened, I needed to step up and take accountability of my part in this that happened and what I was asked for.
Defense attorneys love witnesses like Carmen because she has a criminal record. They are going to go after her on her credibility, especially about the drug charges.
And you lied about it.
Yes.
All right.
That's what addicts do when you're using.
That's true. Addicts lie. All right.
Active addicts.
Next, the state calls the person they say put those drugs in Carmen's hands, Robert Crozier. Remember, he's the one prosecutors say sold her the fentanyl that killed Eric.
Reselling pills in late 2021 and early 2022?
Selling Roxy's then, yes.
But on cross-examination, the defense points out that he had changed his story and is now saying those pills weren't fentanyl.
When you initially agreed with detectives that you might have sold fentanyl, you were
hi, you were coming down, and you don't remember saying that specifically. True?
That is correct, yes.
All this testimony was crucial for attempting to piece together the how. But what was really mind-blowing was the why. And that testimony came from Corey's longtime friends.
Becky Lloyd is someone that was a friend of Corey and Eric, and someone that ended up working at C&E Masonry. Becky testifies that there was an evening in December during Christmas time that Corey and Becky started talking and having a bit of a heart-to-heart.
She talked about how she was feeling trapped. She was feeling like there wasn't an easy way forward out of the marriage. And she said that in many ways it would be better if he were dead.
Corey's lawyers pounce, challenging Becky's memory.
A couple of weeks after Eric died, you gave an interview about this conversation you and Corey had.
Yes.
And isn't it fair that in that first interview, you never mentioned anything about saying it would be better off if Eric was dead, did you?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Your Honor, the state calls Allie Stakings.
Allie Staking is called to the stand. This is Corey's best friend, someone she's known since middle school.
I've known I was going to take the stand for 4 years now, and it's been a nightmare. There was a lot of emotions in walking in the courtroom, and then seeing Corey, it felt like I was about to betray her going on the stand, and I didn't like that feeling.
Are you one of her best friends?
Yes. Yeah, I was, yeah. When I was asked on the stand if she was my best friend or not, I don't know, because I'm now learning a completely different side of this person that I knew and loved for the last 20 years.
Allie should be a strong witness for the prosecution. They want her to tell the jury about a conversation she had with Eric about that infamous Valentine's Day sandwich, but it sort of backfires on them.
He said that he thought that Corey had tried to poison him, but it was more of a funny story. It was like an allergic reaction is what we had thought it was. We were all laughing.
And that past laughter has now turned to loss.
I wish I could say it was nice to see my friend, but I miss my friend. But things are different now.
Having your best friend take the stand is one thing.
Your Honor, the state calls Robert Josh Grossman.
But when your ex-lover walks into the courtroom, well, that's just a whole other level.
Mr. Grossman, you need a minute or two?
I don't know what I need, man.
Please have a seat. Mr. Bloodworth, the state's next witness, please.
The most anticipated witness the state is about to call, it's a bombshell.
Your Honor, the state calls Robert Josh Grossman.
Josh Grossman is the man that Corey was having an affair with. She said she was in love with him.
And he's the one who wrote those text messages to Corey.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
The swearing in of a witness is usually a pretty routine thing in a courtroom, but not this one.
While he's being sworn in, they're asking if he's going to be honest. He doesn't know how to answer it.
Sir, have a seat for me if you don't mind.
I've never seen this moment before, where the judge has to explain what he needs to do.
Mr. Grossman, do you understand the difference between what's true and what's not true?
I do.
And then Josh says, okay, I understand. Yes, I'm going to be honest in my answers. And right away, Josh has our attention.
Sir, do you know Corey Richards?
I do.
And why did you move to Utah?
To work with her, help her flip houses.
Josh is quiet. He has this southern accent. He's a redhead, like Eric.
He served in the military, including combat in Iraq.
Eric came from an affluent ranching family, and Josh was a man from South Carolina who was essentially couch surfing.
She took care of me, you know. I lived for free. She gave me money whenever I needed it. I liked her, so I'd worked for free.
His body is slouched. He fidgets.
During that time that you were romantically involved with Miss Richens, did you love her?
Yes.
During that time, did you feel that she loved you?
I think she did.
So this, of course, gives prosecutors more than just a financial incentive for Eric's death.
The prosecution introduced a series of text messages between Josh and Corey. They put them up on the screen for a painfully long period of quiet time, allowing everybody to read them.
They were sad. They were very corny at times. He said, you know, I tend to fall head over heels in love with someone. Corey seemed a little less authentic, like she was kind of leading him on.
I want to know everything about you. It's part of being in love.
There's something specific you want to know? I will be up all night wondering, babe.
The text ranged from poetic confessions of love, almost had like a middle school feeling about it.
I love you. I love talking to you, being with you. I don't have that in my marriage, and I really enjoy my relationship and love for you. But you're right. We both know this love triangle can't go on forever.
He looks so uncomfortable as the world reads his private text messages.
I love you. K, kind. O, outgoing. U, unique. R, romantic. I, inches away from signing her divorce papers and falling madly in love with her soulmate.
Too late. I have already fallen. Night.
There's this moment where he starts crying.
I'm watching this and wondering, what is the jury thinking right now?
We couldn't talk about it. You could see in people's faces and their eyes, like, ugh. That was heartbreaking.
Josh presented himself as very sincere and genuine, sad, brokenhearted. It was kind of devastating to watch him on the stand.
The court, I think, was very patient with him.
Do you need a minute or two?
I don't know what I need.
Let's just start with that. Why don't we take pause for a moment.
The text between Josh and Corey evolved. Corey sort of suggesting to Josh her dream life, which would be to live with him in the guest home of the Midway Mansion and run a event center together and raise children together.
I have a crazy dream. I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day. Raise some kids, have a little farm. Deal?
You see all of these exchanges, and they contextualize what that relationship was.
And then Corey sends her boyfriend a plea in the form of a text, and that's less than 48 hours before Eric is found dead.
She texts roughly, hang in until Friday. Well, what was Friday? Friday was the day Eric Richens died.
Life is going to be different, I promise. Can I try Friday? Give me a few days. Hang in there until then, please.
The relationship between Josh and Corey just fizzled out. It was in the weeks after Eric passed away.
He testifies that he and Corey take a drive, they stop, and they sit in her car and talk.
Josh testified that Corey asked him a very important question, perhaps a very revealing question.
What sort did she ask?
She asked if I had ever killed anybody.
And was that specific to killed anybody while serving in Iraq?
Right.
Did you respond?
I did.
Did she ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Sir, what was that follow-up question?
She asked me how it made me feel or something along those lines.
Grossman's dramatic and emotional testimony comes to a close, and then something utterly mind-blowing unfolds in the courtroom with the defense team as they are about to present their case.
Ms. Lewis, Ms. Nestor, what's the plan?
Ready to go.
Who's defense counsel's first witness?
Can we have just a minute?
Yeah.
We have a couple of options.
Understood.
The prosecution's case took 13 days, and the defense's case was expected to go 7 to 10 days.
Corey's defense attorneys are whispering to each other back and forth, and it seems like they're trying to decide who to call first. But that is not what we got.
Your Honor, actually at this time, the defense intends to rest.
They said they were calling no one and also rested. It was an absolute shock.
I was very surprised that there was no defense.
So when the defense rested without presenting any witnesses, my mouth, I think, dropped open. There has to be another side of the story, and we can fill in the little holes. And then when they didn't call anyone, I was shocked.
Why would Corey Richins' defense rest without calling anyone? They may believe the prosecution didn't make out their case, that having any witness on the stand wouldn't make sense because they've already won their case.
Do you understand that you have the right to testify at trial?
Yes, I do.
Are you following your attorney's advice and waiving your right to testify at trial?
Yes, I am.
Prosecution and the defense have presented their closing arguments. Judge Mrazek instructs the jury, and court's dismissed. Then, on the same day that the trial ends, and just within a few hours, there's word from the court.
Okay, I just received some news that a verdict is in.
No way.
If you feel overcome with emotion, just look down. We cannot have any outward reaction.
Mark?
Yeah. I had told my kids early on that Eric had died, and my kids were devastated. I said along the way, sometimes it looks like Corey might have done it, but and then my kids would say, well, did she? And I'd say, I don't think so, but it sometimes looks like it.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Corey is innocent. I know my little sister. She loves her boys way too much to take their father away from them.
State of Utah versus Corey Richins. Ms. Richins is present.
After deliberating for just under 3 hours, the jury informs the court they've come to an agreement.
The court is informed that the jury has reached a verdict. Would you please hand the verdict form to the deputy? Ms. Richins, please stand. Count 1, aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of aggravated murder.
Corey Richins is found guilty on all counts.
The entire 3 hours was constant, robust, electrifying discussion. There were some people who were sort of on the fence with some of the elements, like they felt that she was guilty, but maybe the state didn't meet the burden. And so we focused on what some of those issues were. They gave them pause, and then we all discussed at length, and that helped us kind of come to the conclusion, and it helped people jump off the fence. To convict a woman of murder was absolutely heartbreaking.
Corey's friend, Allie Staking, watched the verdict live online.
Guilty.
Eric was my friend too. I didn't choose Corey over Eric, but I've lost both of them. She was somebody that meant a lot to me. Her family meant a lot to me, and they meant a lot to my kids. And it's a loss. Nobody wins in this.
After the verdict is read, Eric's family and friends gather outside of the courthouse and embrace each other.
Justice is served.
Yep. Justice.
4 years ago, our family lost the brightest light. Eric is deeply loved and missed every single day. We are grateful to everyone who has worked tirelessly to bring justice for Eric. Our focus is now on honoring Eric's life and supporting his boys as we all continue to heal. Thank you all for being here.
In a statement to ABC News, the Richens family wrote that the justice system has now fairly run its course, and we believe the jury's verdict was just and accurate. There is a hole in our family that cannot be filled, but now at least we have definitive closure. Corey Richens will return to that courtroom to learn her sentence on May 13th, which is no ordinary day. That would have been Eric Richens' 44th birthday. She faces up to life in prison. And her legal troubles are far from over.
She's facing a whole other criminal indictment with multiple counts of mortgage fraud, money laundering, forgery, bad checks. These are serious allegations.
One of the real tragedies in this case is Eric and Corey's kids. Their father tragically passed away. Their mother's parental rights have been terminated. She has forever lost her children. Those children have been adopted by one of Eric's sisters.
There are 3 little boys at the heart of this.
Just love. They have a lot of love surrounding them. They're great boys, and they're gonna be fine.
He was an amazing father, brother, son, nephew, friend. He was an amazing person with the most contagious laugh out there.
I'll remember Eric's laugh. If I can hear it in my head. He needs to be remembered as just a loving dad. He had so much more life to live, and he wanted so much for his boys. I'm gonna remember just how much he loved them.
And that's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
In the study of criminological science, we are occasionally confronted with cases that present a profound dichotomy between the public face and individual, projects and the private actions they commit. These narratives are not merely accounts of tragic loss. They are complex studies in psychology illustrating how hidden motivations such as obsessive desires or compounding financial panic can drive seemingly ordinary individuals to execute deeply planned acts of violence. The task of the investigator, much like that of the criminal psychologist, is to peer beneath the structured facade of daily life, dismantle the constructed alibis, and rely on the patient compilation of physical, digital, and circumstantial evidence to reconstruct the truth. In the 2 extensive analyses that follow, we observe how the dedication of law enforcement officers combined with modern technological innovations successfully brought resolution to 2 communities devastated by calculated acts of domestic deception. Part 1. The Silent Witness of Paradise Ranch. The rolling landscape of Paso Robles, California, is characterized by its tranquil atmosphere, extensive oak groves, and sprawling agricultural estates. Halfway between the major urban centers of Los Angeles and San Francisco, it is traditionally regarded as a peaceful sanctuary. Within this quiet setting, 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum established her residence on a secluded property along El Faro Road, which she named Paradise Ranch. Nancy, a widow who lived alone following the passing of her husband, was a deeply respected member of the local community. She operated a successful downtown salon named the Strand and was known for her generous nature, her passion for horseback riding, and her active participation as a devout member of her local congregation. In the spring of 2018, Nancy prepared Paradise Ranch for potential sale, intending to simplify her personal responsibilities and devote herself fully to her missionary work. To prepare the estate, she engaged various local contractors and tradespeople to perform necessary structural and cosmetic repairs on the property. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a wedding party consisting of more than 20 guests arrived at Paradise Ranch, having rented the main Victorian residence for a weekend celebration. Nancy welcomed the guests warmly, introducing herself and indicating that she would be staying nearby in her personal ranch-style cottage on the property. The evening progressed without apparent incident, with the wedding party returning from their rehearsal dinner at a local winery around 10:30 in the evening and retiring shortly after midnight. The following morning, Saturday, May 5th, the tranquil routine of the estate was abruptly shattered. Amanda, Nancy's daughter, received an urgent communication indicating that her mother had failed to appear for a scheduled morning Bible study, a departure from her exceptionally reliable habits. Amanda requested that a neighbor inspect the cottage. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open and the television blaring with no sign of Nancy. Amanda hurried to the scene and conducted a brief survey of the dwelling, while Nancy's personal vehicle remained parked outside, and her purse, keys, cellular phone, and tablet computer were left undisturbed on a bench. A closer inspection revealed highly alarming details. 2 large poolings of blood on the floor, a blood-stained pillow, and distinct blood spatter on the headboard, cabinet, and adjacent walls. Recognizing that an act of extreme violence had occurred, Amanda immediately contacted emergency services. The investigative perimeter and the sifting of suspects. Upon arrival, the responding deputies secured the cottage, establishing a secure perimeter around Paradise Ranch. Senior investigators, including Reserve Detective Clinton Cole of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, recognized the gravity of the scene. The complete absence of forced entry suggested that the perpetrator had either surprised Nancy in her sleep or was someone familiar with the layout of the property. The immediate presence of more than 20 wedding guests on the property presented a complex logistical challenge. Each guest represented a potential person of interest who had ready access to the grounds. investigators began the methodical process of conducting individual interviews. The bride, who was sleeping in the adjacent guest suite, separated from Nancy's quarters by only a single wall, reported that she had used earplugs and had heard absolutely no unusual sounds during the night. While these interviews were underway, a significant discovery was made 7 miles away along La Ponza Road. An officer with the California Highway Patrol discovered several discarded items of bedding and clothing in the roadside brush. The items included a gingham print sheet set that matched the remaining linens in Nancy's cottage, along with a dress and personal clothing, items that Amanda identified as belonging to her mother. This evidence strongly indicated that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding, loaded into a vehicle, and transported from the scene in a severely injured or deceased state. Suspicion initially focused on one wedding guest who had not attended the group's rehearsal dinner on Friday night, remaining alone at the ranch. During follow-up inquiries, this individual became defensive and uncooperative, which investigators flagged as a potential behavioral indicator of guilt. To resolve this lead, detectives traveled to his residence in Northern California to conduct a detailed interview and request a voluntary deoxyribonucleic acid sample. The guest's wife provided photographic evidence verifying his location during the critical hours of Friday night, and his voluntary deoxyribonucleic acid profile did not match the biological evidence recovered from the cottage, effectively eliminating him from the inquiry. The investigation then turned to the various contractors who had recently worked on the estate. Attention focused on Sean Bloom, a general contractor with whom Nancy had experienced a contentious financial dispute. Nancy had terminated his services and withheld final payment until the close of escrow. In text messages recovered by investigators, Sean had expressed intense anger and threatened legal action. When interviewed, Sean openly acknowledged his frustration with Nancy, but cooperated fully, providing a voluntary buccal swab. The resulting analysis cleared him of any physical connection to the crime scene. Detectives also examined Nancy's estranged son, Chad. The relationship had been marked by years of silence and bitterness due to personal differences. Text messages from the night of Nancy's disappearance showed that she had reached out to him in an effort to reconcile. When approached by investigators, Chad refused to provide a voluntary biological sample. To resolve this lead, detectives initiated physical surveillance. After observing Chad consume several beverages in a public establishment and place the containers in his vehicle, deputies initiated a traffic stop, cited him for an open container violation, and retrieved the discarded bottles. Deoxyribonucleic acid testing subsequently cleared Chad of any involvement. The digital breakthrough, utilizing geofence technology. By the second week of the active investigation, conventional leads had been exhausted and the case threatened to stall. In an effort to bypass the investigative deadlock, the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office decided to employ a highly novel digital investigative method, a Google geofence search warrant. At the time, this represented one of the earliest applications of this technology within the state of California. A geofence search warrant allows law enforcement to establish a virtual, three-dimensional boundary around a precise geographic location during a specific time frame, requiring service providers to identify any active mobile devices that recorded location data within that zone. To define the precise window of interest, analysts examined Nancy's phone records and discovered that an attempted 911 call had been placed from her device at 12:17 in the morning on the night of her disappearance. The call had lasted 40 seconds, indicating it had been instantly disconnected or terminated by an external force. This provided a definitive time stamp for the initial assault. When the geofence data was returned and processed, analysts filtered out the known devices belonging to the wedding guests. They observed a single, unidentified mobile device that recorded location data directly within Nancy's cottage at 1:33 in the morning and again at 1:52 in the morning. This device did not belong to Nancy, and its presence inside her personal living quarters in the quiet hours of the night was entirely unexplained. Upon obtaining a subsequent warrant for the subscriber information associated with the device's unique digital signature, investigators receive a name, Carlo Fuentes Flores. The dual psychology of Carlo Fuentes Flores. The identification of Carlo's device inside the cottage represented a critical turning point in the investigation. Carlo was a local painter who had worked extensively on the exterior of the buildings at Paradise Ranch in the weeks prior to Nancy's disappearance. During his initial brief interview with deputies, he had appeared exceptionally polite, mild-mannered, and cooperative, expressing fondness for Nancy and noting her kindness toward him. A comprehensive background check revealed that Carlo had no criminal record in either the United States or Mexico. He was regarded by his employer and peers as a professional, dedicated craftsman and a loving father. However, a deep forensic analysis of his digital history revealed a starkly different private life. Beneath his polite public exterior, Carlo harbored a secret world of heavy drinking, sexual obsessions, and illicit encounters. His search history revealed frequent, targeted searches for pornography featuring older women using terms that aligned significantly with Nancy's demographic. Further analysis of his phone records showed that he frequently searched for escorts in various cities and maintained over a dozen self-shot videos documenting physical encounters with different women. His employer recalled that Carlo's personal behavior had recently begun to deteriorate, marked by heavy drinking and requests for loans to fund trips to Las Vegas. To secure an arrest warrant, investigators needed to connect Carlo directly to the physical violence inside the cottage. Forensics had previously discovered a partial bloody handprint on the pillow inside Nancy's room. from which they had isolated an unknown male deoxyribonucleic acid profile. Special operations officers placed Carlo under physical surveillance. They followed him to a local restaurant where he dined with his wife and retrieved a plastic beverage bottle he left on the table. The laboratory confirmed that the biological sample recovered from the bottle matched the profile found in the center of the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. Interrogation, location, and resolution. On December 18, 2018, detectives brought Carlo to the sheriff's station for a formal interview. Detectives Clinton Cole and Dave initially conducted the conversation in a professional, non-confrontational manner, establishing his familiarity with the property and his knowledge of Nancy's living quarters. Carlo initially maintained his cooperative facade, claiming he did not even know where Nancy's personal cottage was located on the ranch. As the detectives systematically presented the geographical tracking data and the definitive biological evidence, Carlo's composure collapsed. He became visibly shaken, admitted he had made a mistake, and began to speak. Initially, Carlo attempted to present Nancy's death as an accident, claiming he had returned to the property late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck her with his truck in the dark. He claimed he carried her inside the cottage to assist her, where she subsequently passed away. Detectives challenged this narrative, pointing out the presence of his handprint on a pillow used for suffocation. Carlo then abandoned the accident story and confessed to the full scope of his actions. He admitted he had traveled to the ranch with the explicit intention of engaging in a physical encounter with Nancy, falsely interpreting her past kindness as a sign of interest. He confessed that he entered her cottage around midnight, where he assaulted and raped her. When she attempted to resist and dial 911, he struck her repeatedly, causing the extensive blood spatter. To prevent her from reporting the crime, Carlo held a pillow over her face until she was suffocated. He then wrapped her body in the bedding, loaded her into his truck, and drove east into the remote interior of the county. Carlo agreed to lead investigators to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. Detectives placed him in a vehicle and followed his directions due east from Templeton. The journey lasted approximately an hour, transitioning into the arid, vast terrain of the Carrizo Plain near the Kern County border. After several incorrect attempts to identify the location, Carlo directed the team to a remote patch of wilderness. Detective Cole observed a small, unnatural pile of rocks stacked in a circle. Upon closer inspection, investigators discovered skeletal remains, including a skull and major limb bones scattered by animal activity. Carlo fell to his knees and wept, expressing remorse for his actions and requesting that detectives convey his apologies to his daughter. Carlo was arrested and charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances, including murder committed during the commission of a rape and burglary. In January 2022, rather than proceeding with a standard jury trial, Carlo opted for a slow plea, allowing the judge to review all the compiled evidence to determine guilt. This allowed him to preserve his right to appeal while avoiding a prolonged public trial. The judge found Carlo Fuentes Flores guilty on all counts and sentenced him to life. In the study of criminal psychology, we frequently observe a phenomenon known as the mask of normalcy. It is a comforting illusion, a carefully constructed facade that allows individuals harboring deep-seated malice to walk among us, undetected in our most peaceful communities. To their neighbors, coworkers, and even their families, these individuals appear entirely ordinary, perhaps even exceptionally kind or industrious. Yet beneath this surface lies a cold, calculating drive, often fueled by greed, desperation, or hidden impulses. When the mask finally slips, it reveals a stark contrast between the public persona and the private reality. This narrative explores two profound cases where peaceful communities were shattered by acts of violence hidden behind such masks. The first takes us to the snow-capped mountain towns of Summit County, Utah, where a mourning widow portrayed herself as a compassionate guide for grieving children, while investigators quietly assembled a puzzle of financial ruin, secret affairs, and lethal substances. The second leads to the sun-drenched vineyards and oak-lined hills of Paso Robles, California, where a beloved salon owner vanished from her ranch, leaving behind a baffling digital footprint that would eventually expose a quiet craftsman living a dark, secret double life. Through both accounts, we observe the meticulous, patient efforts of law enforcement and forensic science as they dismantle these illusions, proving that even the most carefully hidden truths will eventually come to light. In the picturesque mountain valleys of Utah, the community of Heber City and the affluent enclave of Park City are places where families seek a quiet, wholesome existence. It was here that Corey Richens built her life. To those who watched her on local television in early 2023, she appeared to be the very definition of resilience and maternal devotion. She stood before the cameras to promote her self-published children's book titled Are You With Me?, which she explained was written to help her 3 young sons, aged 10, 9, and 6, cope with the sudden, tragic loss of their father. With a soft, earnest demeanor, Corey shared her story of grief, explaining how her 39-year-old husband, Eric Richens, had passed away unexpectedly the previous year. She spoke of the profound struggle of navigating nights, which she described as the hardest time for any grieving family. She explained that her book was born from her own desperate search for literature that could help her boys understand that although their father was no longer physically present, his love and spirit remained with them. To the viewers at home, she was a brave young mother, turning her personal tragedy into a source of comfort for others. However, behind this touching public narrative lay a grim reality that had begun to unfold in the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022. At approximately 3 in the morning, Corey called 911, her voice frantic as she reported that her husband was cold to the touch and not breathing. Dispatchers guided her through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, instructing her to count the compressions out loud. When officers and paramedics arrive at the family's home, they found Eric lying on his back on the bedroom floor, despite their immediate efforts and the use of a cardiopulmonary resuscitation machine. Eric had no pulse and was pronounced dead at 3:58 in the morning. As law enforcement officers began to document the scene, they noted several unusual details. Paramedics observed that Eric appeared to have been deceased for some time before the 911 call was placed. Furthermore, there was a surprising amount of blood present, which initially led first responders to hypothesize that Eric might have suffered a sudden brain hemorrhage or aneurysm. When questioned by the responding deputy, Corey explained that they had been celebrating a successful real estate transaction earlier that evening, sharing a drink at 9 o'clock to toast her business. She claimed she then went to sleep in her children's room because one of her sons was experiencing night terrors. When she woke up and returned to her own bedroom, she said she found her husband unresponsive because Eric was a young, active, and seemingly healthy 39-year-old man. The medical examiner's office was legally required to conduct a thorough forensic investigation. Eric was known in his community as an athletic outdoorsman, a dedicated father, and a successful business owner who ran C&E Masonry, a highly profitable stone masonry enterprise. The idea that he had simply passed away in his sleep from natural causes seemed highly improbable to those who knew him. The true cause of Eric's death was revealed when the toxicology report was finalized. The analysis did not show a ruptured aneurysm. Instead, the medical examiner discovered a lethal concentration of fentanyl in Eric's system. The dosage was astronomical, measuring 5 times the amount required to kill an average human. Crucially, the substance was identified as acetylphenanyl, a highly illicit variant commonly manufactured by drug cartels rather than pharmaceutical companies. This finding immediately transformed the case from a tragic medical anomaly into a criminal investigation. Sheriff's detectives began a quiet, comprehensive examination of the Richens household, seeking to identify the source of the lethal substance. While Corey maintained that she was shocked by the findings and insisted that Eric did not use illicit drugs, Eric's family immediately voiced their suspicions to law enforcement. They painted a picture of a marriage that was far from the perfect domestic partnership Corey presented to the public. According to Eric's family, the couple's relationship had been strained for several years, primarily due to financial deception. In 2020, Eric discovered that Corey had taken out a line of credit for $250,000 against their home, a property that Eric owned solely. She had secured these funds by forging his signature, utilizing the money to support her rapidly expanding real estate and home flipping business, K. Richens Realty. This discovery devastated Eric, destroying his trust in his wife and prompting him to consult a divorce attorney. Although they chose to attend counseling and did not separate, Eric took decisive steps to protect his assets and his children's future. He quietly modified his estate planning, creating a trust that named his 3 young sons as the primary beneficiaries and designated his sister, Katie, as the executor and trustee. He also transferred the ownership of their family home into the trust, ensuring that Corey would not inherit the property or his successful masonry business in the event of his death. The depth of the animosity between Corey and Eric's family erupted into the open. Just 2 days after Eric's passing, upon realizing that Eric's will was stored in a house safe, Corey hired a locksmith to gain entry. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived at the home and confronted Corey, leading to a heated, physical altercation. Amy informed Corey that Eric had secretly altered his estate plans and that she was largely excluded from the inheritance. The dispute escalated to the point that law enforcement was called and Corey was subsequently charged with and convicted of assault after pleading no contest. As detectives delved deeper into the financial records, they realized that Corey was facing an overwhelming mountain of debt. She was attempting to purchase a massive, unfinished luxury mansion in Midway, Utah, for nearly $3 million, planning to complete the construction and sell it for a significant profit. To fund this ambitious project, she had relied heavily on high interest, hard money loans, without the influx of capital from Eric's estate or his life insurance policies. Her financial empire was on the verge of total collapse. The financial desperation was further illustrated by the experiences of those who did business with her. Her close friend, Chelsea Barney, had entrusted Corey with $45,000 as a down payment on a home, only to discover later that the deed had never been properly filed, resulting in the foreclosure of the property and the eviction of Chelsea's family. Another family, the Wrights, purchased a remodeled home from Corey, only to find the walls filled with hidden mold and water damage, leading to severe health issues, a lawsuit, and eventual financial ruin. As the criminal investigation intensified, detectives began to uncover a pattern of suspicious illnesses in Eric's past. During a vacation to Greece in 2019, Eric became violently ill after drinking a beverage ordered for him, prompting him to call his sister and express fear that his wife was attempting to poison him. More recently, on Valentine's Day in 2022, Corey purchased a sandwich for Eric from a local diner. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe allergic reaction, requiring his sons epinephrine auto-injector and Benadryl. He survived the incident but sent text messages to his friends stating, "I think she might have poisoned me." The breakthrough in the investigation came from a meticulous analysis of Corey's phone records. A private investigator hired by Eric's family identified frequent communications between Corey and a woman named Carmen Lauber, who had a history of drug-related offenses. This information was forwarded to Detective Jeff O'Driscoll of the Summit County Sheriff's Office, following a search of Carmen's residence, which revealed drug paraphernalia and a copy of Eric's obituary taped. To a mirror, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. Carmen revealed to investigators that Corey had approached her on 2 separate occasions prior to Eric's death, requesting that she procure strong pain medication, specifically fentanyl. Carmen stated that she delivered the drugs to Corey, who later requested an even stronger dose, claiming the first batch was not powerful enough. This second delivery occurred on February 26th, just days before Eric's fatal overdose. In addition to the financial motive and the drug transactions, prosecutors uncovered a romantic element to the crime. Corey had been engaged in a long-term, secret affair with a 41-year-old handyman named Josh Grossman. Text messages between the two revealed a passionate relationship with Corey, repeatedly expressing her desire to be with Josh and imagining a future where she would divorce Eric, secure millions of dollars, and live with Josh in the guest house of the Midway Mansion. 48 hours before Eric's death, Corey sent a text to Josh, urging him to hang in there until Friday, promising him that life was about to change. In May 2023, Corey Richins was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and multiple drug distribution counts. While held in the Summit County Jail, a routine search of her cell uncovered a handwritten 4-page letter addressed to her mother. The letter, which began with the phrase, "walk the dog," instructed her mother to have her brother Ronnie testify falsely that Eric had been obtaining fentanyl from ranch workers in Mexico. The prosecution presented this letter as clear evidence of witness tampering and consciousness of guilt, while the defense argued it was merely a draft of a fictional manuscript. The trial of Corey Richins began in a small courthouse near Park City, Utah, drawing national attention. The prosecution, led by Brad Bloodworth, presented a compelling chronological narrative of greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded calculation. They called key witnesses, including Eric's sister Katie, who delivered a heartbreaking testimony about the loss of her brother, and Carmen Lauber, who detailed the drug transactions. Josh Grossman also took the stand, visibly emotional as his private text messages with Corey were displayed for the jury. In a move that stunned the courtroom, Corey's defense team, newly appointed public defenders Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis, chose to rest their case without presenting any witnesses or evidence. They argued that the prosecution had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt how the fentanyl was actually administered to Eric, pointing out the lack of physical forensic evidence in the home. The jury of 8 members, consisting of 6 men and 2 women, deliberated for just under 3 hours. They returned a unanimous verdict of guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder. The reading of the verdict brought a sense of quiet relief and justice to Eric's family, who had fought tirelessly to honor his memory. Corey's parental rights were subsequently terminated, and her 3 Young sons were adopted by Eric's sister, ensuring they would grow up surrounded by love and stability, far removed from the tragic web of deception that had claimed their father's life. As we transition from the snow-covered valleys of Utah to the coastal hills of California, we encounter another study in contrast. In criminal psychology, we recognize that the geography of a place often shapes our perception of safety. Paso Robles, California, is a region defined by its natural beauty, its rolling hills dotted with ancient oak trees, and its thriving world-class wineries. It is a destination where people escape the frantic pace of metropolitan life to find solace in the scenic landscape. Yet in May 2018, this idyllic setting became the backdrop for a deeply unsettling mystery that would challenge the local community's sense of security. Nancy Woodrum was a 62-year-old resident of Paso Robles, deeply rooted in her community. She was a warm, vibrant woman who operated a popular downtown hair salon called The Strand, where she worked alongside her daughter, Amanda. Nancy was known for her generous spirit, her deep religious faith as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and her love for horseback riding. After the passing of her husband, Robert, Nancy lived alone on a scenic, secluded property on El Faro Road, which the family had lovingly restored and named Paradise Ranch. The ranch featured a beautiful two-story Victorian home that served as a popular vacation rental, while Nancy lived in a smaller, adjacent cottage on the property. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a wedding party consisting of more than 20 guests checked into the main house to celebrate a vineyard wedding over the weekend. Nancy welcomed the guests with her characteristic warmth and hospitality, introducing herself to the bride before retiring to her cottage. The following morning, Saturday, May 5th, Amanda became alarmed when her mother failed to appear for a scheduled Bible study. Such an absence was entirely uncharacteristic of Nancy, who was devoutly committed to her faith. Amanda requested that a neighbor check on her mother's cottage. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and Nancy nowhere to be found. When Amanda rushed to the property, she discovered a scene that filled her with immediate dread. Her mother's purse, keys, cell phone, and tablet were still inside the cottage, and her two vehicles remained parked outside. However, the bedding from Nancy's bed was missing, and there were large, unmistakable bloodstains on the carpet, the headboard, and a remaining pillow. Amanda immediately called 911 to report her mother missing under highly suspicious circumstances. The San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office dispatched deputies and detectives to the scene, including Senior Deputy Clinton Cole. Upon surveying the cottage, Cole recognized that this was not a simple missing persons case. It was an active crime scene. The absence of forced entry suggested that Nancy had either been surprised in her sleep or had opened the door to someone she recognized. The urgency of the investigation intensified that evening when an officer from The California Highway Patrol discovered several items discarded along La Ponza Road, approximately 6 miles from Paradise Ranch. The items included stained gingham bedding, a pillow, a dress, a pair of shorts, and a shirt. Amanda viewed the items and confirmed with a heavy heart that they belonged to her mother. The presence of blood on the bedding suggested that Nancy had been severely injured and transported from her home against her will. The investigative team faced an immediate challenge. With more than 20 wedding guests staying on the property, there was a large pool of potential individuals who had physical access to Nancy's cottage. Detectives began the arduous task of securing search warrants and interviewing every guest. One male guest initially drew suspicion due to inconsistent statements regarding his whereabouts during the rehearsal dinner on Friday evening. However, detectives visited his residence in Northern California, verified his presence in photographs taken at the dinner, and cleared him of any involvement. He also voluntarily provided a deoxyribonucleic acid sample. Detectives also examined individuals who had recently performed work on Paradise Ranch, as Nancy had been preparing the property for sale. A general contractor named Sean Bloom, who had engaged in a heated financial dispute with Nancy after being dismissed from a renovation job, was identified as a person of interest. Bloom had previously sent threatening messages to Nancy regarding unpaid funds. However, when contacted by investigators, Bloom cooperated fully, providing his deoxyribonucleic acid, which did not match the evidence found at the scene. Another line of inquiry focused on Nancy's estranged son, Chad. The relationship between Nancy and Chad had been strained for several years, primarily due to religious differences, and Chad had not spoken to his mother face-to-face in 5 years. However, records indicated that Nancy had reached out to Chad via text message on the evening of her disappearance, attempting to find common ground. Chad initially refused to provide a deoxyribonucleic acid sample to investigators, citing a deep distrust of law enforcement. Detectives placed him under surveillance, witnessed him driving with an open container of alcohol, and subsequently arrested him, allowing them to legally obtain his deoxyribonucleic acid from discarded beer bottles. Chad was ultimately cleared of any involvement. With traditional investigative leads exhausted and the community growing increasingly anxious, detectives decided to utilize a novel crime-fighting tool: geofencing. This technology allowed investigators to establish a virtual boundary or fence around Paradise Ranch and request that Google identify any devices that were active within that specific area during a precise time frame. The timeline had been narrowed significantly by a critical discovery in Nancy's phone records. A 911 call had been attempted from Nancy's phone at 12:17 in the morning on Saturday, May 5th, but the call had been abruptly terminated after 0 seconds, indicating that someone had forced her to hang up. When Google returned the geofence data, investigators analyzed the digital footprints while the wedding guest devices were accounted for, detectives noticed a single unidentified device that had pinged inside Nancy's studio. Apartment at 1:33 and 1:52 in the morning, the exact window during which they believed Nancy had been taken. Investigators secured a subsequent warrant to obtain the subscriber information for the device. The results revealed that the phone belonged to Carlo Fuentes Flores, a local painter who had recently completed work on Nancy's cottage. This revelation surprised investigators, as Fuentes Flores had been interviewed briefly during the initial phase of the investigation and had appeared to be a mild-mannered, highly cooperative, and hardworking family man with no prior criminal record. A deep forensic analysis of Fuentes Flores' phone and digital history began to peel away his mask of normalcy, revealing a dark double life. While he presented himself to the world as a devoted father and a skilled craftsman, his search history was filled with searches for mature women, escorts, and adult pornography. Investigators also discovered numerous self-recorded videos of sexual encounters on his phone, indicating a hidden, highly active life of secret impulses. To secure an airtight case, detectives placed Fuentes Flores under surveillance, waiting for an opportunity to obtain his deoxyribonucleic acid without alerting him to their suspicions. When he dined at a local restaurant with his wife, detectives retrieved a discarded Coca-Cola bottle from his table. The forensic laboratory extracted a deoxyribonucleic acid profile from the bottle and compared it to the bloodstains found on the pillow in Nancy's room, which included a partial handprint left by the assailant. It was a perfect match. Armed with this definitive forensic evidence, detectives Clinton Cole and Dave interrogation team brought Fuentes Flores in for questioning. He initially maintained his innocence, claiming he had only been on the property during normal working hours and had always found Nancy to be kind and respectful. However, as the detectives gradually revealed the depth of their evidence, letting him know that they had tracked his phone to the property in the middle of the night, Fuentes Flores' demeanor shifted. He broke down, claiming that he had returned to the property late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck Nancy with his vehicle. He claimed he brought her inside to help her, but she collapsed. Detectives recognized this as a common minimization technique often used by guilty individuals attempting to avoid the full consequences of their actions. As the pressure continued, Fuentes Flores finally confessed to the true nature of his actions. He admitted that he had gone to Nancy's home with the intent to sexually assault her. He entered her cottage, woke her, raped her, and then smothered her with a pillow to prevent her from identifying him. He then loaded her body into his truck, wrapping her in her own bedding, which subsequently blew out of the truck bed onto La Ponza Road during his escape. In a dramatic turn, Fuentes Flores offered to lead detectives to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. He guided them on a long, somber journey to the remote, desert-like landscape of the Carrizo Plain on the border of Kern County. In the fading light, Detective Cole spotted a small, unnatural pile of rocks. Beneath them, investigators discovered Nancy's remains, which had been partially scattered by local wildlife. The recovery brought a tragic, solemn closure to the search, confirming the family's worst fears but allowing them to bring Nancy home. While held in jail, Fuentes Flores made recorded phone calls to his wife, admitting to the crime and expressing regret for his actions. To avoid a lengthy and painful trial for Nancy's family, the defense agreed to a slow plea process, where the prosecution presented its written evidence directly to the judge. The judge reviewed the extensive documentation, including the confessions, the geofence data, and the deoxyribonucleic acid matches, and found Fuentes Flores guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the sentencing hearing, Nancy's family, including her daughter Amanda, delivered powerful victim impact statements, expressing the profound void left by her passing. Nancy was remembered not for the tragedy of her death, but for the beauty, faith, and joy she brought to everyone she touched. Today, Amanda continues her mother's passion for horses and the outdoors, riding through the hills of Paso Robles, keeping Nancy's spirit alive. In analyzing both Corey Richins and Carlo Fuentes Flores, we observe how the criminal mind often relies on the belief that a respectable public persona can shield them from the consequences of their darkest desires. Corey believed her role as a successful business owner and a devoted mother would protect her from suspicion, even as she used her talent for writing to construct a narrative of grief around her own crime. Fuentes Flores relied on his reputation as a quiet, polite craftsman to mask a deeply troubled, secret personal life. Yet, in both cases, the meticulously gathered evidence from digital tracking and forensic toxicology to financial audits and deoxyribonucleic acid analysis dismantled these facades. The efforts of dedicated investigators and forensic scientists in Utah and California demonstrated that the truth cannot be permanently hidden behind a mask. Ultimately, these cases serve as a testament to the resilience of families, the dedication of the justice system, and the triumph of truth over deception. In the study of criminal psychology, we often find ourselves examining the concept of the constructed narrative. Human beings are storytelling creatures. We organize our lives, our ambitions, and our grief into structured tales that help us navigate the complexities of existence. However, when the human mind tilts toward malice, the power of storytelling can be weaponized. Some individuals do not merely commit crimes. They attempt to write themselves into a completely different reality, fabricating a public persona designed to mask a dark and desperate truth. This analysis explores two extraordinary cases where the public face of the accused stood in stark contrast to their hidden motivations. The first is the tragedy of Eric Richens, a devoted father and successful businessman in Utah, whose wife attempted to orchestrate a narrative of profound public mourning, while hiding a trail of financial ruin and betrayal. The second is the disappearance of Nancy Woodrum, a beloved community pillar in California, whose quiet life was shattered by a man who managed to project an image of polite, hardworking normalcy while harboring deep, dark impulses. In both instances, the pursuit of justice required investigators to look past the carefully constructed stories of the perpetrators and follow the silent, indelible evidence left behind. In the quiet mountain community of Camas, Utah, the scenery is dominated by towering peaks and an air of peaceful isolation. It is the kind of place where families put down roots, businesses thrive on handshakes, and the troubles of the wider world feel distant. But in the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022, that peace was shattered by a call to 911. At a little after 3 in the morning, Corey Richens placed a frantic call to emergency services. Her husband, Eric, was unresponsive. In the recording of that call, her voice carries a tone of desperate urgency as she is instructed to perform chest compressions. The operator counts the rhythm, urging her to keep going, to count out loud so the efforts can be verified. Within minutes, paramedics, firefighters, and law enforcement officers arrived at the scene, their body-worn cameras capturing a chaotic and tense atmosphere. Inside the master bedroom, the reality of the situation was grim. Eric Richens, a healthy and athletic 39-year-old man, lay on his back on the floor. He had no pulse, and he was not breathing. Paramedics immediately deployed a automated cardiopulmonary resuscitation machine, its rhythmic mechanical thuds filling the room as deputies tried to make sense of the sudden tragedy. Corey stood nearby, visibly distressed, explaining the sequence of events to a deputy. She painted a picture of a quiet, celebratory evening. Hours earlier, she explained they'd been toasted to a major financial breakthrough in her real estate business. They had shared a drink at 9 o'clock to celebrate. Later, she said she went to sleep in one of her children's rooms because the boy was experiencing night terrors. When she awoke and returned to her own bed, she touched her husband and found him cold. As the officers asked routine questions about health conditions, Corey mentioned that Eric suffered from Lyme disease and occasionally took a tetrahydrocannabinol gummy to help him sleep. She maintained that he had no history of illicit drug use and that he had been fine just hours before. Her mother, Lisa Darden, arrived at the home shortly after, describing her son in law as pale the previous evening and suggesting that perhaps his weekly allergy shots had contributed to some unforeseen medical crisis. Yet, even in those first hours, there were details that did not align with a typical medical emergency. Paramedics noted an unusual amount of blood coming from Eric's mouth during resuscitation efforts, raising immediate questions. The initial hypothesis among some on the scene was a ruptured aneurysm, a tragic but Natural explanation for a young, athletic man dying so suddenly. For the community and the friends who gathered to support Corey, the loss was incomprehensible. Eric was a pillar of the community, a dedicated soccer coach, an avid outdoorsman, and a partner in a highly successful stonemasonry business called C&E Masonry. He was a man who worked hard and played hard, deeply, committed to his 3 young sons, who were 10, 9, and 6 years old at the time. In the days following the death, friends and family gathered at the home to pay their respects. There was music, dancing, and a bittersweet celebration of Eric's life. His favorite song, a country track about living life to the fullest, was played. Corey was seen dancing with her sons, surrounded by a projection of light that some remarked felt like Eric's lingering presence. It appeared to be a moment of deep, shared grief. However, beneath the surface of this communal mourning, a severe division was forming. The morning after the gathering, a conflict erupted at the family home. Corey, determined to access Eric's will, had summoned a locksmith to open the family safe. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived and was outraged, asserting that Corey had no right to access the safe. The confrontation escalated to the point where law enforcement was called, and Amy alleged that Corey had physically assaulted her. Corey would later plead no contest to an assault charge stemming from this incident. More importantly, the dispute revealed a secret that Eric had kept from his wife. The family estate planner confirmed that in 2020, Eric had established a private trust. He had structured his assets so that his sister, Katie, was the trustee, and his 3 sons were the primary beneficiaries. The family home was placed within this trust, effectively leaving Corey with very little direct control over his estate. When this reality was made clear to Corey, her response was one of disbelief and anger. To the public, Corey maintained her role as the grieving widow. She began speaking about the difficulties of helping young children process the sudden loss of a parent, claiming she could find no suitable books on the subject. She announced that she had written a children's book titled Are You With Me? The book, created with the assistance of a ghostwriter, was written from the perspective of a child wondering if their deceased father was still present in their lives, followed by reassuring answers from the father's perspective. Corey dedicated the book to her husband, describing him as amazing and wonderful. In March of 2023, she embarked on a local media campaign, appearing on television and radio programs to promote the book and discuss her journey through grief. She presented herself as a vulnerable, strong mother fighting to keep her family together. But the narrative she had constructed was about to collide with forensic science. The county medical examiner was legally required to conduct an autopsy due to Eric's young age and the unexpected nature of his death. When the toxicology report was finalized, the findings were staggering. Eric Richens had not died of an aneurysm, nor had he suffered a natural medical crisis. The cause of death was acute drug intoxication, specifically from fentanyl, the level of the drug in his system was 5 times the lethal dosage. Furthermore, the substance detected was not medical-grade fentanyl prescribed by a practitioner. It was illicitly manufactured, the kind typically sourced from the black market. The revelation of a massive fentanyl overdose immediately transformed a tragic death inquiry into a homicide investigation. Detectives secured search warrants for the Richens residence, looking for physical evidence of the drug, but found nothing in the home. When Corey spoke with the chief medical examiner, she pressed for details, asking about the specific compounds found in the stomach. Contents, including acetyl fentanyl. The medical examiner confirmed that these were markers of illicitly manufactured drugs, leaving the question of how such a lethal dose entered Eric's system wide open. Eric's family was immediately suspicious of Corey. They provided investigators with a history of financial deception that painted a very different picture of the marriage. In 2020, Eric had discovered that Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against the family home, a property that Eric owned solely, without his knowledge or consent. This discovery had shaken Eric deeply, prompting him to consult a divorce attorney and quietly alter his estate planning to protect his children. Although the couple engaged in counseling and remained together, the trust had been fundamentally broken. By the time of the arrest, investigators had painted a picture of Corey's financial state that was nothing short of disastrous. She had transitioned from residential real estate to high-stakes property flipping, embarking on her most ambitious project yet, a massive unfinished mansion in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million. To fund this and other projects, she had relied heavily on high-interest, short-term, hard-money loans. She was buried under millions of dollars of debt, and the expected windfall from her husband's estate was her only apparent way out. The financial strain had also taken a toll on those around her. Her close friend, Chelsea Barney, had entrusted Corey with $45,000 as a down payment for her first home. Corey had promised to handle the transaction, but Chelsea later discovered the deed had never been properly filed. The property was foreclosed upon, leaving Chelsea and her family evicted and financially devastated. Another family, the Wrights, purchased a remodeled home from Corey, only to find severe mold and water damage that forced them into foreclosure and temporary housing, leading to a lawsuit. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of past illnesses that Eric had experienced. In 2019, during a trip to Greece, Eric had become violently ill after consuming a drink. Because he was taking medication for Lyme disease that interacted poorly with alcohol, he had ordered a non-alcoholic beverage. He suspecting that the drink had been intentionally altered, and he called his sister expressing fear that his wife was attempting to harm him. Then, on Valentine's Day of 2022, just weeks before his death, Corey purchased a sandwich from a local establishment and brought it to Eric, After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe physical reaction. He was forced to use his son's epinephrine auto-injector and take antihistamines before falling into a deep sleep. Afterward, he texted a friend stating that he believed his wife had tried to poison him. The critical breakthrough in the criminal investigation came when detectives analyzed Corey's communication records. A private investigator hired by the Richens family had identified 3 primary contacts on Corey's phone during the months surrounding the death: her husband, her mother, and a woman named Carmen Lauber. Carmen Lauber had worked occasionally as a cleaner for Corey's real estate projects and possessed a history of drug-related offenses. Recognizing her as a vital link, detectives executed a search of her residence, uncovering drug paraphernalia and an unlicensed firearm taped to a mirror in her home. Investigators made a chilling discovery: a copy of Eric Richens' obituary. Facing substantial prison time, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. She revealed that Corey had approached her on multiple occasions, requesting strong pain medication and later specifically asking for fentanyl. Carmen admitted to procuring the drugs and leaving them at one of Corey's renovation properties. The timing of their communications was highly incriminating, with intense text traffic occurring on Valentine's Day and again just days before Eric's death. On May 8th, 2023, Corey Richens was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. During her subsequent bail hearings, prosecutors presented evidence of her internet search history retrieved from her electronic devices. The searches, conducted after she had been served with an initial search warrant, included inquiries about luxury prisons, whether law enforcement could recover deleted messages from an iPhone, what information appears on a death certificate if someone is poisoned, and what constitutes a lethal dose of fentanyl. While in custody at the Summit County Jail, further evidence of consciousness of guilt emerged. During a routine search of her cell, deputies discovered a handwritten 4-page letter commonly referred to as the walk the dog letter. In the letter, Corey instructed her mother to tell her brother, Ronnie, to testify to a fabricated story that Eric had obtained pain pills and fentanyl from workers at his ranch in Mexico. The defense argued the letter was a draft of a fictional manuscript, but prosecutors viewed it as a clear attempt at witness tampering. In March of 2024, prosecutors amended the charges to include attempted murder for the Valentine's Day poisoning incident. Around the same time, another critical witness came forward. A handyman named Josh Grossman revealed that he and Corey had been engaged in a clandestine romantic affair for years. The prosecution introduced text messages between Corey and Josh that revealed a deep emotional attachment and a desire to build a life together. In the weeks leading up to the death, Corey texted Josh, expressing her dream of divorcing, obtaining millions of dollars, and purchasing the Midway mansion to live in the guest house with him. Less than 48 hours before Eric was found dead, she sent a text to Josh pleading with him to hang in there until Friday, promising that life will be different. Furthermore, Josh testified that in the weeks following Eric's death, Corey had taken him for a drive and asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his military service in Iraq and how that experience had made him feel. When the trial commenced, the prosecution spent 13 days presenting a detailed case of financial desperation, secret poisoning attempts, illicit drug purchases, and a desire to escape a marriage for a new life. In a shocking turn of events, when the prosecution rested, Corey's defense team chose to present no witnesses and immediately rested their case. Corey waived her right to testify, leaving the jury to deliberate solely on the evidence presented by the state. After deliberating for just under 3 hours, the 8-member jury returned with a unanimous verdict. Corey Richins was found guilty of aggravated murder and the associated charges. The 3 young boys at the heart of this tragedy lost both of their parents, their father to a senseless act of violence, and their mother to a life sentence. In prison, they have since been adopted by one of Eric's sisters, surrounded by a family determined to preserve the memory of a loving, dedicated father who simply wanted the best for his sons. While the mountain valleys of Utah were grappling with the trial of Corey, Richins, a different kind of mystery, had unfolded years earlier in the sun-drenched hills of Paso Robles, California, known for its rolling vineyards, ancient oak trees, and scenic beauty. Paso Robles is a destination of quiet, luxury, and peaceful retreats. It is a place where people go to escape the noise of urban life. But down El Faro Road, nestled in a secluded valley, sits a property known as Paradise Ranch. In May of 2018, this beautiful estate was scheduled to host a joyous occasion, a weekend vineyard wedding. More than 20 guests, including the bride and her bridesmaids, had checked into the large, picturesque Victorian home on the property. The owner of Paradise Ranch was 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum. Nancy was a beloved fixture in the local community, having operated a popular hair salon called The Strand for many years. She was known for her warmth, her generous spirit, and her deep devotion to her faith as a Jehovah's Witness. Having experienced profound personal tragedy in her life, the loss of an infant son, the death of her teenage daughter from cystic fibrosis, and the sudden passing of her husband, Nancy had found solace in her beliefs and her love of horseback. Riding on Saturday, May 5th, 2018, Nancy's daughter, Amanda, received a concerning phone call. Her mother had failed to appear for a scheduled morning Bible study, an absence that was entirely uncharacteristic of her. Amanda asked a neighbor to check on her mother, who lived in a small apartment on the Paradise Ranch property. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. When Amanda arrived, she was met with a scene that immediately triggered panic. While Nancy's purse, car keys, cell phone, and vehicles were all present, her bedding was missing from the mattress. Upon closer inspection of the bedroom, Amanda discovered what appeared to be blood spatter on the walls, the headboard, and a pillow. She immediately called 911. Law enforcement responded quickly, recognizing that the scene indicated a violent abduction. Clinton Cole, a senior deputy with the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, arrived to coordinate the investigation. The presence of significant bloodstains on the floor and walls confirmed that a violent struggle had taken place inside the cottage. The investigation was immediately complicated by the presence of the wedding party, with over 20 guests staying just yards away from Nancy's dwelling. Detectives faced a massive pool of potential suspects. Paradise Ranch was highly remote, meaning that anyone on the property had immediate, unchallenged access to Nancy. That evening, the investigation received its first major lead. A California Highway Patrol officer discovered a bundle of bedding and women's clothing discarded along La Ponza Road, approximately 6 or 7 miles from the ranch. Amanda confirmed that the items, which bore significant bloodstains, belonged to her mother. It was clear that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding and transported away from a scene. Detectives began the arduous task of interviewing every individual associated with the wedding party. One guest whose whereabouts during the Friday evening rehearsal dinner were initially unclear became a primary focus. He had remained at the ranch alone while the others attended the dinner. Detectives traveled to his residence in Northern California, ultimately verifying his alibi through photographs on his wife's phone and obtaining a voluntary DNA sample, which cleared him. Investigators then turned their attention to other individuals who had access to the property. Nancy had recently decided to sell Paradise Ranch to devote herself full-time to her religious ministry. Because of the impending sale, several contractors, painters, and plumbers have been working on the estate. Among them was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently been fired by Nancy after a heated dispute over payments. Bloom had threatened legal action, providing a potential motive for resentment. However, after initial reluctance, Bloom cooperated fully with investigators and provided a DNA sample that did not match the evidence found at the scene. Detectives also examined Nancy's family dynamics. She had an estranged son, Chad, with whom she had not spoken face to face in 5 years. The night before her disappearance, Nancy had reached out to him via text message, attempting to find common ground. Chad, who expressed a deep distrust of law enforcement, initially refused to provide a DNA sample. Detectives placed him under surveillance, retrieved a discarded beer bottle after he was cited for an open container violation, and submitted it for testing. Chad was subsequently cleared. The case appeared to be stalling. Weeks turned into months, and despite extensive searches of the surrounding foothills, creek beds, and wilderness areas using helicopters, search dogs, and volunteers, no trace of Nancy was found. However, investigators possessed a vital piece of forensic evidence. Crime scene. Technicians had discovered a faint, bloody handprint on the pillow left in Nancy's bedroom. A DNA profile of an unknown male was developed from this print. But when submitted to the national database, it yielded no matches indicating the perpetrator had no prior felony record. Detectives also established a precise timeline of the crime. Telephone records revealed that an attempted 911 call had been placed from Nancy's phone. At 12:17 in the morning on the night she vanished. The call had lasted for 0 seconds, indicating it had been abruptly terminated almost immediately after dialing. With traditional investigative avenues exhausted, the sheriff's department decided to utilize a cutting-edge digital tool, geofencing. Securing a search warrant, investigators requested data from Google regarding any mobile devices that had been active within a virtual boundary drawn around Paradise Ranch during the precise hours surrounding the crime. The geofence data returned a series of anonymized device identifiers. While most belonged to the cleared wedding guests, investigators noticed a specific device that had pinged within the immediate vicinity of Nancy's cottage at 1:30, 3, and again at 1:52 in the morning. Investigators obtained a subscriber warrant for the device, revealing the owner to be Carlo Fuentes Flores. Carlo was a local painter who had been hired to work on the property. He was a quiet, polite family man with no criminal record in either the United States or Mexico. When initially interviewed as a routine witness, he had been cooperative, claiming he knew nothing of Nancy's disappearance and recalling her kindness in offering him tamales while he worked. With his phone placed at the scene of the crime during the exact hours of Nancy's abduction, detectives began a deep dive into his background. They uncovered a hidden digital life. Carlo's search history revealed a preoccupation with older women, frequently searching for adult content involving mature individuals, as well as soliciting escorts. Under active surveillance, detectives followed Carlo to a local restaurant where he had lunch with his wife. After he departed, investigators retrieved a plastic beverage bottle he had used. The DNA extracted from a bottle was a match to the bloody handprint found on the pillow. On the day of his interrogation, detectives placed Carlo in an interview room. They slowly walked him through his work on the property, establishing his familiarity with the layout of Nancy's residence. When confronted with the reality of the DNA evidence and his presence on the night of the disappearance, Carlo's demeanor collapsed. He initially attempted to frame the incident as a tragic accident, claiming he had returned to the ranch late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck Nancy with his truck. He claimed he had carried her inside to assist her, but the explanation failed to account for the blood spatter and the DNA on the pillow. Under continued questioning, Carlo admitted to the full scope of the crime. He revealed that he had driven to the property with the intention of forcing himself upon her. He entered her apartment, assaulted her, and ultimately suffocated her with a pillow to prevent her from identifying him. In a stunning development, Carlo offered to lead detectives to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. He directed investigators on a long, somber drive eastward into the remote, arid landscape of the Carrizo Plain. In a shallow depression amidst the wilderness, under a pile of placed rocks, investigators discovered Nancy's remains. Following his confession and the recovery of the body, Carlo's defense team attempted to suppress his statements, arguing that as a native Spanish speaker, his understanding of his rights was flawed. However, jail telephone recordings revealed he spoke fluent English with his family, and the court ruled his confession admissible. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including his recorded admissions to his wife. From jail, Carlo agreed to a specialized legal proceeding known as a slow plea. The prosecution presented its evidence to a judge who subsequently found Carlo Fuentes Flores guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of committing the murder during the commission of a rape. He was sentenced to life, in prison without the possibility of parole. The resolution of these two cases, though separated by geography and circumstance, highlights the fundamental truths of modern criminal justice. In both Utah and Paso Robles, California, the perpetrators believed they could control the narrative. Corey Richins believed she could write a book about grief to mask a cold, calculated murder driven by financial desperation. Carlo Fuentes Flores believed his reputation as a polite, quiet craftsman would shield him from suspicion after committing a brutal crime of opportunity. In the end, their constructed narratives were dismantled not by chance, but by the meticulous work of investigators, the application of forensic science, and the indelible digital and physical evidence left behind. For the families of Eric Richins and Nancy Woodrum, the pain of their loss remains a permanent reality. Yet the legacy of these victims is kept alive by those who love them. In the mountain valleys of Utah, 3 young boys are growing up supported by a community that remembers their father's love. In the rolling hills of California, a daughter and granddaughter ride horses through the oaks, carrying forward the spirit of a woman who found her paradise in the beauty of the natural world and the strength of her faith. Good wins over deception, and the truth written in the quiet evidence of the physical world ultimately endures. In the study of criminal psychology, one of the most profound phenomena is the construction of the mask. Human beings are inherently social creatures, relying on trust, reputation, and the narratives we project to navigate our communities. When an individual decides to cross the ultimate moral boundary, they rarely do so openly. Instead, they invest immense energy into fabricating a secondary persona, a false front designed to elicit sympathy, respect, or quiet admiration from those around them. This narrative exploration examines 2 starkly different yet psychologically parallel cases of deception where individuals attempted to hide dark, destructive act behind carefully constructed facades of innocence, only to be undone by the persistent efforts of modern forensic science and dedicated investigators. The first case takes us to the quiet, snow-draped mountain communities of Summit County, Utah, where a successful builder and devoted father met a sudden and tragic end, leaving behind a young widow who quickly transformed her grief into a public brand. The second case unfolds in the rolling, sun-bathed vineyards of Paso Robles, California, where a beloved hair stylist and maternal figure vanished from her home, leaving behind a baffling crime scene that stumped investigators until a revolutionary digital net was cast across the quiet valley. In both instances, the contrast between the public mask and the private reality provides a chilling look into the mechanics of human deception. The snowy heights of Utah are known for quiet towns, tight-knit families, and a lifestyle centered around the outdoors and hard work. In Camas, a small town nestled near the mountain resort of Park City, Eric Richens was a respected figure. He was a dedicated father, a coach for his 3 young boys, and the owner of a successful masonry business. Yet, on the cold morning of March 4, 2022, this quiet community was shattered by a desperate call to the emergency response line. It was just after 3 o'clock in the morning when Corey Richens, Eric's wife, dialed 911. She reported that her husband was cold to the touch and was not breathing. When emergency responders and law enforcement officers arrived at the sprawling family residence, they found a chaotic scene. Inside the bedroom, Eric lay on his back on the floor. He had no pulse. Paramedics and firefighters immediately began performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation utilizing a mechanical chest compression device that filled the room with a rhythmic, mechanical sound. Corey stood nearby, visibly distraught, explaining to the responding officers that she and her husband had been celebrating a major financial milestone for her real estate business earlier that evening. They had shared a cocktail to toast her purchase of a multi-million-dollar property, after which she had gone to sleep in her son's bedroom because the child was suffering from night terrors. She claimed that when she returned to her own bed in the early hours of the morning, she reached out to touch her husband and found him unresponsive. To the initial responders, the sudden death of a healthy, active 39-year-old man was deeply perplexing. An emergency medical technician on the scene noticed a surprising amount of blood, prompting an early tentative hypothesis that Eric may have suffered a catastrophic brain aneurysm. For a time, this explanation offered a tragic but natural reason for a sudden loss. Yet for those who knew Eric best, the explanation did not fit the man they knew. He was athletic, robust, and took great care of his health. As the county coroner's office prepared to conduct a forensic autopsy, a legal requirement for any unexpected death of a young person, a complex family dynamic began to surface. Eric's family, including his sisters Katie and Amy, arrived at the home in a state of raw, guttural grief. Almost immediately, tension between the two families became palpable. While friends gathered to support Corey and the 3 young boys, attempting to keep their minds off the tragedy by playing Eric's favorite country music a parallel storm was gathering. The morning after a memorial gathering at the home, a major confrontation erupted. Corey, convinced that Eric's will was stored in a family safe, hired a locksmith to gain access to it. This act deeply upset Eric's sister, Amy, who arrived at the house and confronted Corey. In the heat of the argument, Amy revealed a secret that Eric had kept from his wife. In 2020, deeply concerned by Corey's financial decisions, Eric had secretly established a trust, placing his family home and his assets into it, naming his sister Katie as the executor and designating his 3 sons as the primary beneficiaries. Corey, the family asserted, was largely cut out of the estate. The confrontation escalated to the point of physical violence, resulting in Corey being charged with assault, to which she later pleaded no contest. This immediate dispute over money and assets cast a dark shadow over the grieving process. At the funeral, the divide was absolute. Corey stood on one side of the room, while Eric's family stood on the other, refusing to speak. Observers noted that Corey was no longer wearing her wedding ring, a detail that struck some as unusual so soon after her husband's passing. Faced with a mounting financial crisis and cut off from her husband's estate, Corey embarked on a highly unusual path. She decided to write a children's book on grief. Hiring a ghostwriter, she produced a book titled Are You With Me?, which was written from the perspective of a young boy wondering if his deceased father was still present in his life. The book was dedicated to her sweet baby, her husband, and featured illustrations of their family. By March 2023, a year after Eric's death, Corey was appearing on local television and radio programs, promoting her book as a tool to help children cope with loss. On air, she presented herself as a vulnerable, courageous widow, sharing her story to help others. To the public, she was an inspiring figure, navigating the deepest tragedy with grace. Yet behind the scenes, law enforcement officials were quietly building a case that would completely shatter this public image. The turning point had come when the forensic toxicology report was finalized. The medical examiner discovered that Eric had not died of an aneurysm. Instead, his system contained a lethal concentration of illicitly manufactured fentanyl, 5 times the amount necessary to kill an ordinary person. The drug was not medical grade, meaning it had not been prescribed by a physician. It was a street-level substance, often manufactured by illicit cartels. This scientific revelation transformed the case from a tragic, unexplained death into a homicide investigation. Detectives with the Summit County Sheriff's Office, led eventually by Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, began a meticulous review of the electronic devices and records associated with the household. When the toxicology results became public, Eric's family came forward with deeply concerning information. They revealed that Eric had long suspected his wife of trying to harm him. According to the family, during a trip to Greece in 2019, Eric had become violently ill after drinking a beverage ordered for him. Because he was taking medication for Lyme disease. He had ordered a non-alcoholic drink, but he immediately suspected that alcohol or another substance had been added to it. Later, on Valentine's Day in 2022, just weeks before his death, Corey had purchased a bagel sandwich from a local diner and left it for him with a loving note. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe reaction requiring his son's epinephrine auto-injector and a heavy dose of antihistamines. He survived, but he sent a text message to a friend stating that he believed his wife had tried to poison him. As investigators dug into Corey's financial records, they uncovered a compelling motive. Far from being a highly successful real estate mogul, Corey was drowning in millions of dollars of debt. She had taken out large, risky hard money loans to purchase a massive, unfinished mansion in Midway, Utah, hoping to flip it for a profit. To sustain her business, she had secretly forged documents taking out a $250,000 line of credit against the family home, which was solely owned by Eric without his knowledge. When Eric discovered this deception in 2020, it severely damaged their marriage and prompted him to protect his assets through the secret trust. The financial pressure was immense. Corey had even allegedly defrauded her close friend, Chelsea Barney, by accepting $45,000 as down payment for a home, only to fail to file the deed properly, leading to the home's foreclosure and the eviction of her friend's family. Another family, who purchased a remodeled home from Corey, sued her after discovering extensive mold and water damage that made their children ill, leading to their financial ruin. To connect Corey directly to the lethal fentanyl, investigators needed to trace the source of the drugs. A private investigator hired by Eric's family had analyzed phone records and identified a high volume of communication between Corey and a woman named Carmen Lauber, who worked as a house cleaner for Corey's business. Carmen had a criminal history involving narcotics. Detective O'Driscoll used this information to focus on Carmen, eventually searching her residence and finding drug paraphernalia and an unlicensed firearm. Faced with significant prison time, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. She revealed that Corey had asked her to procure strong pain medication for an investor who had suffered a back injury. Carmen had purchased hydrocodone pills and delivered them to Corey. Shortly thereafter, Corey requested something much stronger, specifically asking for fentanyl. Carmen obtained the illicit pills from a local dealer, Robert Crozier, and left them for Corey at one of her home renovation properties. The timing of these transactions was damning. Phone records showed an exchange of 30 text messages between Corey and Carmen on Valentine's Day, the day Eric was poisoned by the sandwich, and another transaction just days before Eric's death on March 4. In May 2023, Corey was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and possession of controlled substances with the intent to distribute. The arrest shocked the community, but the evidence continued to mount. During a search of Corey's jail cell, deputies discovered a handwritten four-page letter tucked away. The letter which Corey claimed was a draft of a fictional manuscript, instructed her mother to tell her brother Ronnie to testify to a fabricated story claiming that Eric had obtained pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico through ranch workers. Prosecutors argued this was clear evidence of witness tampering. Furthermore, investigators uncovered a second powerful motive, a romantic one. Corey had been engaged in a years-long, passionate affair with a local handyman, Josh Grossman. The two had exchanged thousands of text messages expressing deep love and a desire to build a life together at the Midway Mansion. Less than 48 hours before Eric's death, Corey sent a text to Josh, pleading with him to hang in there until Friday, promising that life would be different. When the trial began in Summit County, the courtroom was packed. The prosecution, led by Brad Bloodworth, presented a detailed timeline of financial desperation, secret poisoning attempts, and a hidden love affair. The defense, led by newly appointed public defenders Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis, argued that the state's case was purely circumstantial, pointing out that there was no physical evidence showing how the fentanyl had actually entered Eric's system. The state's witnesses were powerful. Carmen Lauber took the stand, weeping as she admitted her role in procuring the drugs, stating that she felt a moral obligation to tell the truth once she learned of Eric's overdose. Josh Grossman also testified, visibly uncomfortable and emotional as his private intimate. Text messages with Corey were projected on a screen for the jury to read. He recounted a chilling conversation after Eric's death, where Corey had asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his military service in Iraq, and how it had made him feel. Then came a moment that stunned the courtroom. After the prosecution rested its case, which had taken 13 days to present, the defense team stood up and announced that they were resting their case immediately without calling a single witness. They believed the state had failed to meet its burden of proof. The strategy did not succeed. After deliberating for just under 3 hours, the 8-member jury returned a unanimous verdict. Corey Richins was found guilty of aggravated murder and the remaining charges. The mask of the grieving devoted mother had been completely stripped away, revealing a cold, calculating individual who had sacrificed her husband's life to escape her own.